Welcome back, my dear friends of the night. Before we dive into tonight's journey, let me just say thank you for walking these dark paths with me. You know, there's something strangely comforting about knowing we're not alone while exploring the unknown. And tonight, we're stepping into the heart of America's most haunted and terrifying forests. Forests are places of beauty, by day sunlight drifting through the trees, the sound of birds, the feeling of peace. But when night falls, those same woods transform into something else entirely. The silence grows heavy, shadows stretch long, and suddenly every crack of a twig feels like a warning. From cursed groves to haunted hiking trails, from spectral lights to legends of creatures that stalk the darkness. These are America's 25 extremely creepy and haunted forests you should never enter alone. So, hold tight, my friend, keep the lantern burning, and let's walk these haunted trails together. Freetown Fall River State Forest in Massachusetts has long carried a reputation that makes even seasoned hikers uneasy. It lies within the boundaries of what has become infamous as the Bridgewater Triangle, a swath of southeastern Massachusetts linked to paranormal phenomena, unsolved mysteries, and terrifying encounters. The forest itself, stretching across thousands of acres, is thick with pine and oak, its trails winding through a landscape that looks ordinary in daylight, but becomes otherworldly as soon as shadows begin to stretch. It is here that countless stories of strange lights, ghostly figures, and sinister rituals have emerged, weaving a tapestry of fear that has endured for decades. For many visitors, the first unsettling phenomenon they notice is the lights. Reports describe glowing orbs flickering between the trees, hovering just out of reach, moving in ways that no lantern or flashlight could mimic. Some glow red, others white, and they often vanish the moment someone tries to follow them. These so-called phantom lights have been seen by campers, hunters, and even park rangers, who admit they cannot explain them. The lights appear most often in areas where the forest grows unusually dense, where the underbrush muffles footsteps and the canopy blocks the stars, giving the illusion of being trapped in an endless maze. Many locals warn newcomers never to chase the lights, those who do often find themselves lost for hours, disoriented, as if the forest itself has swallowed them whole. Ghostly figures are another recurring presence. Hikers have told of walking the trails and spotting shadowy shapes pacing them just beyond the tree line. Sometimes they look like human silhouettes, other times like tall, thin forms that vanish if you blink. There are accounts of people walking alone and hearing footsteps that echo theirs, matching their pace exactly, though no one is ever visible. Some describe the figures as resembling colonial settlers or Native Americans, lingering reminders of the region's violent past. Freetown Fall River State Forest sits on land once fiercely contested, soaked in history of bloodshed and betrayal, and many believe these phantoms are restless echoes that never found peace. But beyond these ghostly tales lies something darker, more human in origin. Police reports and local rumors suggest that the forest has been the site of cult activity stretching back to the 1970s. Rangers and officers discovered evidence of fires, crude altars, and mutilated animals hidden deep within the woods. In some cases, the remains were so disturbing that law enforcement suspected ritual sacrifice. These weren't isolated incidents. Throughout the years, similar discoveries have resurfaced, feeding the belief that secret gatherings still occur under cover of night. The thought that real people might be performing occult rituals among the trees adds a tangible layer of dread to the forest's already unsettling reputation. One of the most chilling accounts comes from the early 1980s, when a hunter stumbled upon the remains of several dogs. The bodies showed signs of deliberate mutilation, arranged in a manner that investigators suggested could have been ceremonial. The discovery shocked the community, leading many to avoid the forests altogether. Around the same time, stories began circulating of hooded figures seen wandering the trails at night, sometimes carrying lanterns, sometimes chanting in voices that carried eerily through the trees. Though police cracked down on trespassers, whispers of these clandestine gatherings persisted. The forest has also been linked to true crime. Several murders and disappearances have ties to the area, reinforcing its reputation as a dangerous place. One of the most notorious cases involved the discovery of a woman's body in the forest in the late 1970s, leading some to speculate that her death was connected to the alleged cult practices. Others suggest that the forest is a dumping ground, its vastness and seclusion making it the perfect hiding place for unspeakable acts. While not every crime has been solved, each case deepens the sense of dread that clings to the trees. Of course, skeptics argue that the stories are simply products of imagination, folklore, born from coincidence and fear. They suggest the lights are marsh gas or reflections, the ghostly figures nothing more than shadows, and the stories of rituals exaggerated by rumor. But even skeptics admit that something about the forest feels heavy, as if the air carries a charge of unease. Many people who have no belief in the paranormal have walked into Freetown Fall River State Forest only to leave with an undeniable sense of being watched. At night, the forest transforms entirely. The thick canopy blocks out the moon, and the trails twist into indistinguishable paths. Sounds carry in strange ways. A snapping twig seems to echo. The wind moans like a voice, and small animals scurrying through leaves sound like footsteps in pursuit. In this darkness, imagination mixes with legend, and it becomes easy to believe that something unseen moves between the trees. Campers report waking to the sensation of being surrounded, though no intruders are ever found. The reputation of Freetown Fall River State Forest endures because it offers both supernatural and human terror. The ghost stories chill the spine, the phantom lights lure with mystery, and the shadow figures whisper of spirits bound to a violent history. But layered over all of this is the knowledge that very real crimes, from animal mutilations to unsolved murders, have taken place beneath those trees. That fusion of legend and fact makes the forest uniquely frightening. To this day, visitors walk its trails with a mixture of curiosity and fear. Some go seeking evidence of the paranormal, others simply for the challenge of hiking in a place so steeped in dark reputation. Most leave unharmed, but almost everyone carries away a story, a flicker of light, a noise that didn't belong, or the persistent feeling that something unseen was with them. Whether haunted by spirits, stalked by cults, or simply shaped by the imagination of those who enter, Freetown Fall River State Forest remains one of the most unsettling woodlands in America. It is a place where beauty and horror intertwine, where every shadow could be a ghost, and where the forest itself seems to breathe secrets it will never willingly reveal. The Black Hills National Forest in South Dakota is often celebrated for its rugged beauty, its granite peaks, and its dense, evergreen trees that stretch for miles across the land. But beneath that beauty lies a reputation far darker than most visitors realize. Locals whisper that this place hides secrets beyond understanding, secrets that have earned it a chilling nickname, the Hoia Baciu of America. Just like the infamous forest in Romania, the Black Hills has become associated with strange lights, disorienting sensations, and the overwhelming feeling that something unseen is watching from the shadows. It begins with the silence. Hikers have reported walking into certain areas of the forest where sound seems to vanish. The chirping of birds stops, the rustle of wind in the branches fades, and even footsteps sound muffled, as though the world itself has been swallowed in thick velvet. These dead zones, as some call them, defy logic. Experienced woodsmen insist that forests are never truly silent, yet in these patches of the Black Hills, the quiet is suffocating. Many who encounter it feel their skin crawl, as if silence itself were unnatural, a warning from the land to leave immediately. The sensation of being watched is another common theme. Lone hikers often describe the uneasy feeling that eyes are following them from the tree line. Some report stopping suddenly, convinced someone is behind them, only to find the trail empty. Even groups of campers have admitted to hearing soft footsteps circling their tents at night, only to discover no tracks in the morning. One man, a hunter from Rapid City, told of feeling such an oppressive presence that he cut his trip short, claiming he could no longer bear the sensation of being followed. It was like walking with a shadow on your back, he later said, except the shadow didn't belong to you. The forest also has a reputation for interfering with instruments. Compass needles are known to spin without explanation, pointing in directions that defy magnetic north. Campers using GPS devices sometimes find their screens glitching, their maps showing them standing in locations miles away from where they actually are. Pilots have even mentioned strange interference when flying low over certain ridges. These disturbances are often blamed on the unique mineral composition of the Black Hills, but those who have felt them in person describe a much stranger energy, something that feels alive, as if the forest itself bends reality for reasons unknown. And then there are the lights. Dozens of reports describe glowing orbs drifting through the trees, sometimes floating high in the canopy, sometimes hovering close to the ground. They appear in shades of white, green, or orange, and move with an intelligence that unsettles those who see them. Unlike fireflies or lanterns, the orbs often change direction suddenly, weaving between trunks or vanishing altogether. Some witnesses say the lights seem to respond to human presence, flickering brighter when approached, or deliberately moving just out of reach, luring hikers deeper into the woods. A group of college students once followed one of these lights for nearly an hour before realizing they had become completely lost. Their trail markers nowhere to be found. Only by retracing their steps at dawn did they manage to stumble back to safety. Stories of missing time also emerged from the Black Hills. One woman claimed she and her husband entered a small clearing after sunset, drawn by a faint glow ahead. They recalled walking into the clearing, and then nothing. The next thing they remembered was waking at the edge of their campsite, 3 hours later, with no memory of how they got there. Their watches had stopped during the missing time, only to start again when they awoke. Those skeptics chalk it up to exhaustion or stress. Those who hear their story cannot shake the eeriness of the account. Legends passed down among indigenous tribes of the area add another layer of mystery. The Lakota Sioux, who have lived among the Black Hills for generations, hold the land as sacred, calling it Pahasapa, the heart of everything that is. Many tribal stories speak of spirits that dwell in the forest, both protective and dangerous. Certain areas are considered places where the veil between worlds is thin, where travelers must tread carefully to avoid drawing unwanted attention from spirits. These cultural warnings echo eerily with modern stories of vanishing sound, shifting compasses, and phantom lights. Skeptics argue that the Black Hills' reputation is exaggerated, that stories of silence and strange lights can be explained by natural phenomena. Minerals in the soil, temperature shifts, or even exhaustion might create illusions that feel supernatural. Yet even the most rational explanations do little to ease the feeling. Many describe the unmistakable sense that the forest is aware of those who enter it. One camper put it best when he said, "I went into those woods believing in nothing, but I came out believing the forest was alive." The Black Hills National Forest continues to draw hikers, hunters, and campers every year. Most come for the beauty of its mountains and streams, never experiencing the darker side of its legends. Yet for those who do, the experience is unforgettable. Whether it's the silence that swallows sound, the lights that drift like intelligent willow, the wisps, or the knowing sensation of eyes in the dark, the forest leaves its mark on anyone who dares to venture too far. It is this combination of natural wonder and unnatural dread that makes the Black Hills so unsettling. Unlike other haunted places tied to specific ghost stories or tragedies, its menace feels more elemental. It is not about a single spirit or cursed event, but about the land itself, a living, breathing mystery that watches and waits. That is why so many call it the Hoia Baciu of America. Both forests hold beauty and terror in equal measure, and both remind us that some parts of nature are not meant to be fully understood. In the Black Hills, every flicker of light, every strange silence, and every prickling sensation at the back of your neck serves as a reminder that the forest may not just be scenery. It may be something far more aware and far less forgiving than we imagine. On the quiet coast of Virginia, near the small town of Matthews and the waters of the Chesapeake Bay, lies a stretch of woodland that has carried a chilling reputation for centuries. Known as Old House Woods, This tangle of pines and hardwoods appears deceptively ordinary in daylight. Yet, as the sun dips and fog rolls inland from the bay, the forest seems to transform into something else entirely. Stage 4, ghostly armies, spectral ships, and a history steeped in legend. To locals, it is one of the most haunted places in the state, a place where the past has refused to die. The name Old House Woods comes from a long-gone colonial mansion that once stood near the edge of the trees. By most accounts, the house had a sinister aura of its own. It was said to have been abandoned during the 1700s after a series of tragedies, including the death of one of its occupants under mysterious circumstances. Over time, it decayed into a shell of rotting wood, windows like dark sockets peering out toward the bay. Locals claimed the house was haunted by spirits, its halls echoing with phantom footsteps and flickering lights. In the early 20th century, the house reportedly burned down, though some insist the flames were unnatural, rising suddenly on a still night and consuming the structure without spreading to the surrounding trees. Today, only the forest remains, but the hauntings never ceased. One of the most famous tales tied to Old House Woods is that of the ghostly soldiers. Residents have long told of spectral armies marching silently through the trees, their bayonets glinting in the moonlight, uniforms from centuries past clinging to their transparent forms. Some believe these are the remnants of English soldiers. Others say they are the ghosts of Revolutionary War or Civil War fighters. Witnesses described seeing full regiments moving as if on parade, only to vanish into mist when approached. Horses are sometimes heard, as well the muffled sound of hooves on damp earth, echoing through the foggy night. Many who have encountered these visions claim the figures pay no mind to the living, as though trapped in an endless reenactment of battles long forgotten. The forest's connection to the sea adds another layer of mystery. Old House Woods is infamous for reports of glowing ships appearing offshore, often drifting silently through the fog. These phantom vessels are said to blaze with light, their decks crowded with ghostly sailors. Some legends claim the ships belong to pirates, perhaps Blackbeard's crew or others who once prowled the Chesapeake Bay. The stories say treasure was buried somewhere in the woods, hidden by pirates who were later killed before they could reclaim it. Their restless spirits are believed to wander still, guarding their hoard with jealous fury. On stormy nights, glowing ships have been reported sailing straight toward shore, vanishing into thin air before striking land. There are also tales of ghostly encounters that seem almost too strange to believe. One oft-repeated story involves armored knights who appeared to a group of locals in the late 1700s, emerging from the woods as if conjured from another age. These knights, shining and spectral, reportedly marched toward the bay before fading into nothingness. The sighting gave rise to theories that Old House Woods may be a kind of crossroads between worlds, where spirits from different times bleed into the present. Perhaps most chilling are the stories of those who claim to have been physically touched by the spirits. Some visitors report being shoved or grabbed by unseen hands, pulled toward the deeper parts of the forest. One man, walking alone at dusk, described feeling a cold grip close around his wrist, yanking him off the trail. He stumbled, caught himself, and turned to find no one there. Another account tells of a woman who felt the weight of an invisible presence pressing down on her shoulders, forcing her to her knees until she prayed aloud. Once she did, the pressure vanished, leaving only silence and the sound of her panicked breathing. Despite the fear surrounding it, Old House Woods has always drawn the curious. Paranormal investigators, historians, and thrill-seekers have ventured into its shadows, hoping to catch a glimpse of the unexplained. Some bring cameras and recorders, and though most leave with nothing more than stories of unease, a handful have captured strange anomalies, mists, forming human shapes, disembodied voices caught on tape, and flickering lights that dart between the trees. These fragments of evidence are debated endlessly, but they only serve to fuel the forest's enduring reputation. Even skeptics find it hard to dismiss the atmosphere of Old House Woods. The combination of salt air drifting from the bay, the thick fog that clings to the ground, and the twisted silhouettes of trees create a natural eeriness that blurs the line between reality and imagination. Yet when multiple witnesses, farmers, sailors, tourists describe the same visions of soldiers and ships, the line between folklore and fact becomes harder to define. Local lore maintains that treasure may still lie buried somewhere beneath the roots, perhaps explaining why the forest refuses to let go of its dead. Whether or not the gold exists, the spirits seem bound to the place, their unrest echoing through centuries. Pirates, soldiers, knights, and sailors all gathered in a single patch of coastal Virginia, their stories stitched into the fabric of the land. Today, those who dared to walk Old House Woods after dark do so at their own risk. Many leave shaken, claiming to have heard whispers in the fog, or to have glimpsed figures standing silently among the trees. Others never see anything, but they carry away an overwhelming sense of dread, as though the forest itself were alive, watching, waiting. Old House Woods is more than just a haunted forest. It is a place where history refuses to die, where legends linger in the air like mist off the Chesapeake, and where the boundary between past and present dissolves. For some, it is a place of fascination. For others, it is a place to be avoided at all costs. But for everyone who hears its stories, Old House Woods remains one of the eeriest corners of America. A reminder that some forests are never truly silent, and some ghosts never truly rest. In the rolling hills of northern San Diego County lies a place that seems almost otherworldly once the sun sets. Known simply as Elfin Forest, this woodland is filled with tangled chaparral, winding trails, and a reputation that makes even the bravest hikers hesitate to enter after dark. By day, the landscape is rugged but inviting, a mix of scrub oak, sage, and sandstone ridges offering views of the valleys below. By night, however, the forest transforms into something far less welcoming, a place where whispers drift through the trees. Icy chills sweep over travelers, and shadowy figures slip just out of sight. Locals insist that Elfin Forest is cursed, its ground soaked in history and blood, and its spirits restless still. One of the oldest legends tied to this woodland suggests that the land was once a Native American burial ground. The Kumeyaay people lived in the San Diego region for centuries, and like many tribes, they considered certain places sacred. Oral tradition hints that these hills were used for ceremonial purposes, and that burials may have taken place here long before European settlers arrived. If true, this alone could explain the eerie atmosphere that clings to the forest. Disturbing such sacred ground has long been considered an invitation for unrest, and many locals believe the land has never forgiven the intrusion of outsiders. Another tale speaks of Spanish bandits who once roamed the hills. According to legend, they used the forest as a hideout, raiding travelers and settlers before returning to the safety of the tangled brush. Eventually, justice caught up with them. Some say they were ambushed and slaughtered within the woods, their blood staining the earth beneath the oaks. Their bodies were left unburied, abandoned to rot, and their spirits are said to still wander the trails in anger. Accounts of men in ragged clothing and broad-brimmed hats, carrying ghostly lanterns or glaring from behind the trees, have been tied to this story for generations. Regardless of which version of history holds more truth, the modern experiences of visitors are chillingly consistent. Night hikers frequently report the sensation of being followed. They describe footsteps crunching leaves just behind them, only to find no one there. Others claim to see quick flashes of movement, dark figures darting between tree trunks or crouching low in the underbrush. One witness recalled stopping in her tracks after seeing what looked like a man-shaped shadow sprint across the trail ahead of her, silent and unnervingly fast. She expected to see another hiker, but when she shined her flashlight into the brush, there was nothing but silence. Disembodied whispers are another common occurrence. Couples and groups walking the trails have sworn they heard faint voices, sometimes urgent, sometimes mournful, carried on the night air. The words are rarely clear, though some claim to have heard their own names whispered back to them from the darkness. In one instance, a man reported standing on a ridge at dusk and hearing a chorus of whispers all around him, surrounding him so completely that he nearly ran back to his car in terror. When he finally escaped the forest, the whispers ceased instantly, as if the trees themselves had been speaking. The physical sensations reported in Elfin Forest are just as disturbing. Many visitors say they've been overwhelmed by sudden icy chills, even on hot summer nights when the air is otherwise still. Some hikers describe walking into patches of cold air so intense that their breath fogs in front of them, only to vanish a few steps later. Others recount moments of dizziness, nausea, or a crushing sense of dread that descends without warning, forcing them to turn back. Paranormal investigators who have explored the area often link these sensations to strong spiritual activity, suggesting that the forest is a hotspot for residual energy. One of the strangest phenomena involves vehicles parked near the edges of the woods. Locals tell stories of drivers who return to their cars after a hike to find deep scratches along the sides, as if claws or hands dragged across the paint. Some even claim to have seen ghostly handprints pressed against their windshields, fading only after the car was started. Whether pranksters, wild animals, or something more sinister are responsible, the consistency of these stories adds to the place's ominous reputation. Despite its frightening lore, Elfin Forest remains a popular destination. Hikers, mountain bikers, and nature lovers come for the trails and vistas, often unaware of the legends until they hear them from locals. Those who arrive seeking paranormal thrills often leave with stories they never expected. One group of college students reported camping just outside the forest. At first they assumed it was other hikers, but the lights moved silently, hovering far above the ground before vanishing into nothing. Another visitor, a seasoned hiker, admitted that while he laughed at ghost stories before entering, he left convinced that something was in there, watching, waiting, and making sure I never came back. Skeptics argue that Elfin Forest's reputation is fueled by imagination and fear. They point out that rustling animals, echoing voices, and sudden shifts in temperature can all be explained by natural causes. But even skeptics acknowledge the uncanny feeling that seems to permeate the place after dark. The stories are too numerous, the experiences too consistent to dismiss entirely. Whether one believes in restless spirits, curses, or simply the power of suggestion, there is little denying that the forest inspires unease. Elfin Forest is a reminder of how deeply the past can cling to the land. Whether it holds the spirits of the Kumeyaay, vengeful bandits, or something else entirely, the forest continues to live up to its reputation as one of California's most haunted woodlands. By day, it is a place of rugged beauty and adventure. By night, it becomes something far more unsettling, a place where whispers rise from the earth, shadows slip through the trees, and every chill in the air feels like a warning. Those who enter after dark do so at their own risk, for in Elfin Forest, the past is never truly gone, and the living are never truly alone. Deep in the quiet heart of Maine lies Randolph Forest, a place that has earned the unsettling nickname, the Dark Forest of Randolph. Though it may appear like any other swath of wilderness, during the day tall pines stretching toward the sky, carpets of moss soft beneath the feet, and streams winding silently through the undergrowth locals know better. When the sun dips below the horizon and the mist begins to creep between the trunks, the forest takes on a presence that is far from natural. Hikers, hunters, and even seasoned woodsmen tell of chilling encounters within this stretch of woodland, where echoes of the past seem to haunt every shadow. The most enduring legend of Randolph Forest is that of the wailing cries. They are not the ordinary sounds of night-nosed screech owl, no coyote's call, and no shifting of branches in the wind. Instead, they are long, drawn-out moans that rise and fall as if carried by some unseen grief. People describe hearing the cries from far away, only to find that the sound suddenly shifts, ringing out from just behind them. These cries, eerie and heart-wrenching, have stopped even the bravest in their tracks. Some say it is the sound of souls forever trapped in the mist, women who died tragically in the region and now roam the forest, unable to find peace. Sightings of spectral women in white have become tied to these cries. Wanderers along the trails claim to see pale figures drifting among the trees, their outlines hazy, their clothing fluttering, as though caught in a wind no one else can feel. Some witnesses describe them as weeping, their faces hidden by veils of hair, while others say the women silently reach out, as if beckoning the living to follow. These apparitions never linger long. Often, when one tries to look directly at them, they vanish into the mist, leaving only the faint echo of a cry in the distance. The mist itself has become part of the legend. Unlike the natural fog that commonly rolls through Maine, this mist is described as thick, unnatural, and strangely alive. It coils low across the ground, shrouding paths and swallowing light from lanterns or flashlights. Travelers caught in it sometimes report losing all sense of direction. Compass needles spin uselessly, and familiar trails seem to twist into unfamiliar shapes. Stories abound of people walking in circles for hours, unable to escape, only to later find themselves inexplicably returned to the very spot where they first entered the mist. The history of Randolph Forest is shadowed with tales that might explain its lingering haunt. Some whisper that it was once the site of an ancient Native American burial ground, disturbed during the earliest waves of settlement. Others believe tragedies from the colonial era, lost children, missing women, and forgotten graves left spiritual scars upon the land. A more sinister tale suggests that in the 1800s, a young woman from Randolph was accused of witchcraft, her fate tied to rituals and persecution carried out in the dark woods. Whether these stories hold truth or not, the atmosphere of the forest seems to carry their weight. Hunters, who know the woods better than most, are among those who fear Randolph Forest after dark. More than one has spoken of setting up camp, only to be woken by the sound of footsteps circling their tent, slow and deliberate, but with no visible source. Others tell of hearing laughter, woman's laughter echoing through the trees, though they were miles from the nearest house. Even during daylight, a heavy silence sometimes falls over the forest, as though every bird, every squirrel, and every insect has ceased to exist. Those moments are described as suffocating, the stillness pressing in on all sides. Local police records reveal sporadic reports over the decades of missing persons, usually hikers or campers. Many are eventually found, disoriented and shaken, claiming to have wandered far longer than they actually had. Some insist they saw strange lights floating between the trees. Others speak of voices calling their names in the dark. Though rational explanations are often suggested: hypothermia, panic, exhaustion, those who have been inside the forest argue there is something far stranger at work. The spectral women in white remain the most haunting image tied to Randolph Forest. One of the most well-known stories tells of a driver passing through the area on a foggy night. He saw a woman in a long, flowing dress standing at the edge of the trees, appearing lost and frightened. Believing she was in trouble, he stopped and stepped out of his vehicle. The woman raised her arm as though to wave him closer. But when he approached, she dissolved into mist before his eyes, leaving him alone on the roadside, chilled to the bone. Others have spoken of being guided or lured by these figures deeper into the woods. Some say the women seem to plead with gestures, urging them to follow, only for the witness to suddenly realize they are far off the trail, the forest utterly unfamiliar. At that point, the figure vanishes, leaving them stranded. It is as though the women in white are caught between tragedy and malice, uncertain whether they seek help or intend to ensnare the living in their eternal wandering. Randolph Forest remains, to this day, a place of contradictions. By daylight, it is peaceful, serene, and breathtakingly beautiful, attracting hikers with its winding trails and lush scenery. But by nightfall, it becomes something else entirely, a labyrinth of shadows, whispers, and sorrow. Whether it is cursed ground, a place of restless spirits, or simply a forest that has absorbed centuries of grief, one thing is certain: those who enter Randolph Forest after dark rarely leave unchanged. The dark forest of Randolph is more than just a legend. It is an experience etched into the memories of all who walk beneath its towering pines. The wailing cries, the spectral women in white, and the ever-present mist ensure that Randolph Forest will forever remain one of Maine's most chilling mysteries. Those who step beneath its canopy at night know they are not walking alone. Something watches, something lingers, and something cries in the darkness. Griffith Park in Los Angeles, California, is known to millions as a sprawling urban oasis, a place of hiking trails, scenic overlooks, and the iconic Hollywood sign towering above. But beneath the bright sky and bustling city that surrounds it lies a history shadowed by darkness and legend. For over a century, locals have whispered about a curse placed upon the land long before the park became a public sanctuary. Curse said to leave its mark on anyone who dares wander too far into the forested hills after dark. The origin of the curse is tied to Don Antonio Feliz, a wealthy landowner in the 1800s. When he passed away, a bitter dispute arose over his estate. One story tells of a woman scorned by family and legal battles, who, in a final act of rage, cursed the land with her dying breath. She swore that anyone who sought to profit from the property would suffer misfortune, and that the forest itself would become a place of tragedy and unrest. Over time, those who lived and worked on the land experienced events that only seemed to confirm the tale. Deaths, accidents, and misfortune seemed to follow the property, creating a reputation that would haunt Griffith Park long after it became part of the city. The most enduring legend of Griffith Park involves ghostly sightings. Visitors frequently report seeing shadowy figures among the trees, often described as moving with purpose, yet vanishing when approached. Campers and hikers have recounted the unsettling experience of feeling watched, hearing soft whispers on empty trails, and glimpsing fleeting movements in their peripheral vision. Even seasoned locals say that the forest carries a weight, a strange energy that presses down on anyone who ventures too far into its wooded areas at night. Another chilling aspect of the park's haunted lore is disembodied laughter. Walkers and joggers have reported hearing eerie giggles echoing through the trees, sounds that have no visible source. The laughter is sometimes light and playful, other times sharp and mocking, and it often seems to follow individuals as they traverse the trails. Many who hear it describe an overwhelming sense of unease, as if unseen eyes are tracking their every step. Perhaps the most famous apparition is that of a spectral horse. Numerous witnesses have described a large, ghostly animal galloping through the park's hills under the cover of night. The horse appears fully formed, powerful, and impossibly fast, often accompanied by a sense of sudden wind and the pounding of invisible hooves on the earth. Those who have encountered it report that it disappears as suddenly as it arrives, leaving only the faint echo of its hooves and the smell of horses lingering in the air. Some believe it is the restless spirit of one of the land's former owners, or animals that perished tragically on the property, doomed to roam the forest forever. Tragedies associated with Griffith Park only deepen its reputation as a cursed space. Fires have swept through its hills multiple times, destroying homes and vegetation. Notable incidents, such as the deaths of hikers and accidents involving vehicles near its winding roads, add to the air of danger that seems woven into the forest itself. The park has witnessed countless untimely deaths, and each new report seems to reinforce the idea that the land holds on to misfortune, as though the curse remains active to this day. The park's most famous landmark, the Hollywood sign, is also tied to its eerie history. Actress Peg Entwistle tragically leapt to her death from the sign in 1932, and some visitors claim to see a pale figure wandering near the letters, dressed in period clothing, her presence marked by an inexplicable sadness. Others report a faint scent of perfume lingering in the air, believed to be the remnant of the young actress. Her story, entwined with the land's curse, continues to haunt the park, creating a chilling connection between legend and real-life tragedy. Even today, Griffith Park continues to inspire both awe and fear. By day, it is a place of recreation, offering hiking trails, picnic spots, and sweeping city views. But as dusk falls and shadows stretch across the hills, the park takes on a different character. Ghostly figures, disembodied laughter, and phantom horses transform the familiar forest into a place where the veil between the living and the dead feels impossibly thin. Those who enter after dark are often struck by the overwhelming sensation of being observed, of a history filled with misfortune lingering just beyond the tree line. For over a century, Griffith Park has been more than just a park. It's a living testament to legends, curses, and restless spirits. Visitors who stroll its trails at night may feel the weight of centuries pressing down, hear the laughter of unseen presences, or witness the fleeting silhouette of a spectral horse racing across the hills. Whether these experiences are the product of imagination, tragedy, or something far darker, one thing remains clear. Griffith Park is a place where the past refuses to remain silent, and the forest still holds on to its secrets. Deep in northwestern Pennsylvania lies the sprawling Allegheny National Forest, a wilderness of more than 500,000 acres. Its dense woodlands, remote trails, and endless rivers create a landscape both beautiful and unsettling. To those who wander its depths, the forest feels alive with something unseen. Visitors often describe the sense of being watched, as if the trees themselves conceal something just beyond human perception. Ghost lights, phantom figures, and disembodied footsteps have turned the Allegheny National Forest into one of Pennsylvania's most haunted wildernesses. The stories here stretch back to the days when indigenous tribes first regarded the forest as sacred. The Seneca people told of spirits dwelling within the woods, guardians that could appear as shadows among the trees, or glowing orbs drifting through the night. These tales were not meant to terrify, but to warn. Respect the land, and it would allow safe passage. Disrespect it, and the spirits would remind you of their power. When European settlers arrived, they too began reporting strange encounters in the dense thickets and along the winding rivers. What began as folklore has only deepened over centuries, passed from frontiersmen to loggers to modern-day hikers. One of the most common legends involves the ghost lights, flickering spheres of pale blue or green fire that appear deep in the forest after dark. Some campers describe seeing these strange orbs float silently through the trees, hovering just out of reach before vanishing into nothing. In certain accounts, the lights seem to beckon travelers, drawing them away from trails and into the deeper wilderness. Those who chase them often find themselves hopelessly lost, only to stumble back hours later, disoriented and shaken. Skeptics dismiss the lights as swamp gas or reflections. Yet countless eyewitnesses swear their glow is too deliberate, too intelligent, to be natural. Alongside the ghost lights are reports of phantom campfires. Hikers and hunters have spoken of seeing the unmistakable orange flicker of firelight through the trees, accompanied by the faint sound of voices or laughter. When they approach, however, the glow disappears, leaving only darkness and silence. Some have even claimed to smell smoke lingering in the air despite no fire being present. The experience can be deeply unsettling, as if one has stumbled across a gathering of spirits, reenacting moments long past. Shadowy apparitions are another recurring theme. Some witnesses describe tall, dark figures gliding silently across trails, dissolving into the undergrowth when pursued. Others report seeing spectral hunters dressed in old frontier clothing, muskets slung over their shoulders, silently trudging through the mist. One chilling account tells of a woman hiking near the Tionesta scenic area, who came face to face with a pale figure in tattered clothing. The woman appeared translucent, her eyes hollow and dark. Before the hiker could speak, the apparition simply turned and melted into the trees. Terrified, she fled the area and refused to ever return. Equally unnerving are the phantom footsteps. Hikers often recount the disturbing sensation of being followed. They hear the crunch of leaves or the snap of twigs behind them, yet, when they turn, there is nothing there. Sometimes the footsteps stop when they stop, resuming only when they begin walking again. One camper reported hearing heavy footsteps circling his tent late at night, the sound moving steadily closer until it stopped just outside the thin fabric wall. He waited in silence, clutching a flashlight, but when he gathered the courage to look outside, there was no one there. Many believe the forest holds an energy that magnifies the presence of the supernatural. The thick pines and rolling mist create an atmosphere where imagination runs wild, but even hardened outdoorsmen have confessed to experiences they cannot explain. Hunters have returned from expeditions visibly shaken, swearing they saw figures stalking them through the woods. Some even abandon their hunts altogether, leaving behind gear in their haste to escape. The forest is also linked to stories of tragedy and death, which may fuel the hauntings. Logging accidents in the late 1800s claimed the lives of countless workers, many of whom were buried in unmarked graves near the camps where they perished. Others tell of long-forgotten settlers who vanished without a trace, their homesteads reclaimed by the forest. In more recent years, there have been reports of missing hikers whose bodies were never found, further deepening the forest's eerie reputation. Paranormal investigators have attempted to capture evidence of these phenomena. Recordings made deep in the forest have picked up unexplained whispers and strange wailing cries. Compass needles sometimes spin erratic, and temperature drops are frequently reported in localized patches of woodland. Cameras have captured streaks of light cutting through the trees where no source could be found. While none of this has offered definitive proof, it has fueled the forest's legend as a hotspot for otherworldly activity. For those brave enough to explore, the Allegheny National Forest is a place of breathtaking beauty and deep unease. Towering pines block out the sky. The wind carries whispers through the branches, and the darkness here feels heavier than anywhere else. Visitors speak of walking along a trail, only to feel time stretch and bend, minutes passing like hours. Others say the silence is too perfect, as if the forest itself is holding its breath, waiting for something unseen to step forward. Whether these stories are born of natural phenomena, collective imagination, or true supernatural forces, the Allegheny National Forest remains one of Pennsylvania's most mysterious landscapes. To wander its depths is to step into a place where the veil between worlds feels thin, where ghost lights drift among the trees, where phantom campfires burn in the night, and where unseen footsteps remind every traveler that they are never truly alone. For those who enter, the forest offers no answers, only the haunting presence of something watching from the shadows. The Pine Barrens of New Jersey is a place where folklore and fear intertwine, a sprawling wilderness of twisted pines and sandy soil that carries with it centuries of unsettling legend, covering over 1 million acres. It is an isolated stretch of forest that has long resisted civilization, and perhaps because of this, it has become one of the most haunted landscapes in America. The name most commonly associated with the Barrens is that of the Jersey Devil, a winged creature of local myth. But those who have spent time in these woods know that its mysteries reach far beyond a single monster. The Barrens hum with a supernatural presence, ghostly wagons rolling through the trees, disembodied screams that echo on the night air, and the sound of spectral children crying as if lost forever. To wander here is to walk into a living legend. The tale of the Jersey Devil is the most enduring, said to date back to the early 1700s. According to one of the most popular versions, a woman known as Mother Leeds gave birth to her 13th child in a small Pine Barrens cabin. Cursing the infant in anger or despair, she supposedly declared it was the devil's child. What emerged was no human baby, but a monstrous creature with bat-like wings, a horse's head, cloven hooves, and glowing red eyes. The beast shrieked, then flew into the dark night, vanishing into the pines. For centuries, locals have reported glimpses of this terrifying figure gliding over the treetops, its cry piercing the stillness. Farmers claimed it slaughtered livestock, and travelers spoke of being stalked by something unnatural just beyond the firelight. Even today, there are those who insist that the Jersey Devil is still out there, watching, waiting, haunting the forest it has claimed as its own. But the Pine Barrens is not a place of one ghost story alone. Its isolation has given rise to countless other tales, many just as eerie. Travelers at night have spoken of hearing wagon wheels creaking along unseen paths, the phantom sound of horses pulling carriages that no longer exist. Some even claim to have seen these spectral wagons appear briefly in the mist, lanterns glowing, before they dissolve into the darkness. Locals connect these visions to the days of smugglers and bandits, when outlaws used the cover of the forest to move their goods in secret. Perhaps these are echoes of that shadowy past, destined to replay themselves for eternity. There are also stories of screams that pierce the silence, heard by hunters, hikers, and campers alike. These cries often seem long, drawn-out wails of agony or terror, But when the area is searched, there is never anyone there. Some attribute these noises to the ghosts of victims who perished in the wilderness, lost travelers, or those who met violent ends in its shadows. Others believe they are tied to the land itself, two tragedies forgotten by time but not by the forest. On foggy nights, when the trees loom like dark sentinels, the cries can carry far, chilling all who hear them. Perhaps the most unsettling tales involve the phantom children. Numerous witnesses claim to have heard the sound of little ones crying in the night, their voices rising and falling as though they are lost and calling for their parents. At times, the cries seem to come from just beyond the reach of light, drawing listeners deeper into the woods. When anyone follows, however, there is nothing, only the dark expanse of trees and the uneasy feeling of being lured into a trap. Some locals tie these stories to long-forgotten tragedies, when poor families once struggled to survive in the unforgiving wilderness. Children could vanish into the forest and never return, leaving behind only sorrow and mystery. Whether the cries are the echoes of these young souls or something more sinister mimicking them, no one can say for certain. The land itself seems to conspire in its haunting. The Pine Barrens is filled with strange natural phenomena, patches of fog that cling low to the ground, areas where sound carries unnaturally or seems to vanish altogether, and sudden drops in temperature that leave travelers shivering. Many have spoken of feeling watched, their every step tracked by unseen eyes. Others describe encountering shadowy figures darting between trees, always just beyond recognition. Even skeptics, who dismiss the Jersey Devil, often admit that there is something uncanny about these woods. Something that feels alive in a way that is difficult to explain. Folklore has a way of rooting itself in places like this, places that resist human control. For centuries, the Pine Barrens has been home to outcasts, fugitives, and those living on the fringes of society. In colonial times, it sheltered smugglers, deserters, and those cast out from towns. Such people became known as the Pineys, a community that endured in the forest's isolation. Over time, outsiders painted them as strange or even dangerous, and the Barrens became a canvas for fears and exaggerations. It is little wonder, then, that tales of devils, phantoms, and cursed voices grew so readily here, blending the real struggles of survival with the supernatural unknown. Today, the Pine Barrens remain vast and untamed, a place where modern roads and towns only touch the edges of its deep heart. Hikers and campers still enter, drawn by its wild beauty, but many leave with stories they cannot explain. A glimpse of red eyes glowing between the pines, a sudden scream that freezes the blood, the sound of a wagon rolling where no road has ever been. These accounts continue to keep the legends alive, reminding us that even in a world of technology and certainty, there are still places that defy explanation. To stand in the Pine Barrens at night is to feel the weight of history pressing close. The wind rattles through the trees like whispers, the darkness seems to shift and breathe, and the sense of being watched never fully leaves you. Whether it is the Jersey Devil, restless spirits, or something even older and more primal, the Pine Barrens holds on to its secrets. Those who dare to enter know one thing for certain. Once the forest decides to show you its mysteries, you will never forget the experience. Epping Forest in Maryland holds a reputation that unsettles even the most rational-minded visitors. To the casual eye, it appears as a quiet woodland along the Severn River, its dense canopy filtering sunlight into patches of shifting shadow. But beneath the stillness of its trees lies a history whispered in fear. Locals rarely venture into its depths after dark, claiming the woods possess a mind of their own, a darkness that presses down on anyone who dares linger too long. Stories of the forest's ominous pull stretch back decades. Accounts of strange suicides began surfacing in the mid-20th century, when locals discovered bodies hanging from branches, or lifeless figures slumped at the base of trees with no clear reason for their presence there. Families described their loved ones leaving home without warning, drawn inexplicably toward the woods as if something unseen had beckoned them in. Police records list the deaths, often without explanation. leaving behind questions that deepened the forest's sinister lore. Visitors often describe the atmosphere of Epping Forest as suffocating. A strange heaviness settles in the chest, as if the air itself resists each breath. Hikers report sudden changes in mood, feelings of despair or paranoia that arrive without warning, pushing otherwise calm individuals into fits of unease. Some say the forest manipulates emotions, amplifying insecurities until they become unbearable. More than one person has fled the trails mid-walk, shaken by an invisible weight pressing them toward hopelessness. Paranormal investigators and curious explorers frequently recount hearing voices carried through the trees. These disembodied whispers sometimes resemble faint conversations just beyond earshot, but when followed, the sounds vanish into silence. At times, the voices take on a more personal tone, calling names, repeating phrases, or even mocking laughter that seems to dart between the trees. Many who have heard them describe a disturbing sense that the voices are aware of the listener, almost taunting them for daring to intrude. Shadow people are a recurring theme in the tales of Epping Forest. Dozens of witnesses claim to have seen dark, humanoid figures lurking just out of reach, slipping behind trees or standing still along the trails before dissolving into the night. These figures are said to stalk visitors, moving when the observer looks away, always lingering at the edge of vision. One account tells of a group of teenagers who entered the forest at dusk, only to flee minutes later when they spotted several dark forms circling their group, growing closer with each turn of the head. They described the sensation of being hunted, a primal fear that clung to them long after they escaped the tree line. Some claim the forest itself is cursed, carrying with it a malignant energy that predates modern settlement. Native American legends reference dark places in the region where malevolent spirits dwelled, warning against entering without ritual protection. While there is no direct evidence linking these tales to Epping Forest, many believe the land's spiritual history may hold the key to its present darkness. Others suggest the tragedies that occurred within its borders, lives ended by despair, have soaked into the ground, feeding an endless cycle of sorrow and malevolence. Reports of apparitions also haunt the lore of the forest. Hikers have seen pale figures drifting along the paths, dissolving into the mist before they can be approached. One man recounted encountering a woman in a long dress, standing silently among the trees, her face obscured by her hair. When he called out, she turned toward him, but her face was featureless, a blank void that caused him to stumble back in terror before she vanished completely. Other visitors describe glowing orbs that hover among the branches, casting eerie light that fades when approached. Strange sounds plague the woods as well. Echoes of screams often pierce the silence at night, carried across the river and into the trees. Some resemble human cries, others more animalistic but distorted, unnatural. Campers claim to hear footsteps pacing around their tents in the dark, crunching leaves and snapping twigs with deliberate rhythm. Yet when they step outside, the forest remains empty. These disturbances seem to grow more frequent the deeper one ventures, as though the forest reserves its worst for those who dare challenge its heart. Despite its sinister reputation, the allure of Epping Forest continues to draw curious thrill-seekers, ghost hunters, and skeptics eager to prove the legends false. Many leave with little more than stories of unease, but some carry with them experiences that defy explanation, memories of voices, shadows, or chilling encounters that cling like cobwebs to the mind. What is it that lurks within Epping Forest? Is it a convergence of energy tied to the land's history, a lingering curse woven from centuries of tragedy? Could it be the psychological effect of wandering a dark, isolated woodland already steeped in stories of death and despair? Or does the forest truly harbor something far more sinister in intelligence that feeds on fear, that pulls the broken and the vulnerable into its embrace, never to return? For those who have stood beneath its trees, the answer may not matter. What they carry is the memory of being watched, of dread that presses against the skin, of whispers that coil through the mind long after leaving the forest behind. Epping Forest remains a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thinner, where sorrow lingers like a fog, and where something waits in the shadows, eager for the next soul who dares step too deep into its darkness. Big Thicket National Preserve in southeastern Texas is a labyrinth of dense forests, swamps, and bayous that has long been called one of the most mysterious regions in the state. Spanning over 100,000 acres, it is a place where nature thrives in every shadow, where rivers twist like serpents through the foliage, and where thick canopies block out the sun until only a dim greenish light filters to the forest floor. But beneath this natural beauty lies a darker reputation. Big Thicket is a hotbed of supernatural legends, a place where ghostly lights flicker over the water, phantom hunters roam with lanterns, and creatures that defy explanation lurk among the cypress and oak. Locals have long whispered about ghost lights appearing over the swamps and marshes, described as small, glowing orbs, often blue or green in color. These lights hover just above the water or float between the trees before disappearing without warning. Some say they are restless spirits of those lost in the wilderness, trying to guide the living toward safety or perhaps toward danger. Campers report seeing the lights bobbing along the edges of the bayous late at night, moving with an intelligence that defies natural phenomena. Those who attempt to approach them often find themselves inexplicably lost, wandering for hours before returning to familiar paths, as though the lights had played with their sense of direction. Another enduring legend involves phantom hunters. Many claim to see figures moving silently through the forest with old-fashioned lanterns, rifles slung over their shoulders. These spectral hunters are often described as dressed in clothing from the 19th or early 20th centuries, walking the trails and sometimes appearing and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Campers have told stories of hearing the sound of rustling leaves and snapping twigs in the underbrush, only to glimpse a faint glow in the distance and catch sight of a lone hunter pausing in the shadows. When approached, these figures vanish entirely, leaving behind only the faint odor of smoke and gunpowder. Some speculate they are the spirits of those who died hunting or living off the land decades ago, cursed to roam the forest eternally. Perhaps the most unsettling reports, however, involve inhuman creatures stalking the thicket. Witnesses describe encounters with beings that are neither fully human nor fully animal, with muscular, distorted bodies, glowing eyes, and movements that are both terrifyingly fast and eerily deliberate. Hikers recount feeling an intense sense of being watched, hearing guttural growls from just beyond the tree line, and glimpsing large shadows slipping silently between the trunks. Some claim the creatures have humanoid shapes, standing upright on two legs, while others resemble twisted amalgamations of man and beast, crouching low in the underbrush, always just out of reach. Encounters are rare, but when they occur, they leave a deep impression. Those who have seen these beings often report sleepless nights, lingering paranoia, and an unshakable feeling that something is following them even long after they leave the preserve. The geography of Big Thicket contributes to its otherworldly reputation. The forest is a maze of swamps, bayous, and dense undergrowth where sunlight barely penetrates. Waterways twist unexpectedly, creating natural disorientation, while thick vegetation muffles sound and casts deep shadows. Many paranormal enthusiasts believe that this unusual landscape amplifies strange energies, allowing spirits, apparitions, or other supernatural phenomena to manifest more vividly than in ordinary woodlands. It is a place where the boundaries between the living and the dead, the natural and the unnatural, feel impossibly thin. Stories of the thicket's strange power stretch back centuries. Indigenous tribes in the region spoke of spirits dwelling in the swamps, guardians of the land who would punish intruders or warn travelers of danger. Early settlers told tales of disappearing hunters, travelers led astray by shifting fog, and strange lights dancing above the marshes. Over time, these stories merged with the lore of ghost hunters, inhuman creatures, and other spectral phenomena, creating a dense web of superstition that still haunts anyone who ventures too far into the preserve. Even today, hikers and campers report unsettling experiences. Some hear voices carried on the wind, whispers calling their names, or repeating fragmented sentences. Others describe an oppressive feeling of dread, a sensation that the forest is aware of their presence and judging them. Many recount footsteps that do not match the rhythm of their own, or sudden rustlings that move in ways impossible for any animal. One seasoned hiker described walking a familiar trail only to notice shadowy figures watching from multiple directions at once, vanishing as soon as he blinked, leaving him shaken and questioning his sanity. Mist that curls unnaturally along the ground, small orbs of light hovering in dense foliage, and fleeting silhouettes captured in tree lines all hint at the preserve's supernatural dimension. While skeptics argue these may be tricks of light, fog, and imagination, the sheer number of consistent reports over decades suggests something more. Those who spend long nights in the thicket often return with similar stories, regardless of whether they knew the legends beforehand. Big Thicket National Preserve is, in essence, a forest alive with mystery. Its combination of natural beauty and eerie legend creates an environment where anything seems possible. Ghost lights drift over swamp waters as if carrying messages from the past. Phantom hunters patrol trails long abandoned, and creatures of unimaginable form stalk the shadows. For those who enter the thicket, the experience is as much psychological as it is physical, a mixture of awe, fear, and the uncanny sense that the forest itself is sentient. Despite its supernatural reputation, Big Thicket continues to attract adventurers, thrill seekers, and ghost hunters. Some go in search of the Jersey Devil's cousin, or local hauntings, others for the raw beauty of an untamed wilderness. But no matter the intention, one lesson remains constant. The thicket does not easily let visitors leave untouched. For those who venture deep into its heart after dark, ghost lights may dance in the distance, spectral hunters may silently watch from the shadows, and inhuman creatures may linger just beyond sight, waiting to remind the living that some places in this world are never meant to be fully understood. Dudleytown Forest, tucked deep in the hills of Connecticut's northwest, is a place that has inspired fear and fascination for generations. Often referred to as the Village of the Damned, Dudleytown is a ghost town shrouded in thick forest, with a history steeped in mystery, tragedy, and the supernatural. Unlike most haunted locations that rely on elaborate architecture or eerie landscapes, Dudleytown's power comes from the land itself. Its abandoned homes and crumbling foundations sit silent beneath the canopy of trees, and visitors speak of an overwhelming sense of dread that seems to cling to every corner of the forest. The village's origins date back to the 18th century, when settlers from the Dudley family established a small farming community in the remote hills. Isolated and surrounded by dense woodland, the town thrived for a short period, but misfortune soon took hold. Crops failed inexplicably, livestock perished without cause, and families experienced sudden bouts of illness and tragedy. Some accounts suggest that every generation of the Dudleys seemed to be plagued by misfortune, with descendants leaving or disappearing under mysterious circumstances. By the mid-19th century, the town had been largely abandoned, leaving empty homes and overgrown fields behind. It is from this long history of misfortune that the village earned its sinister nickname. Modern visitors describe Dudleytown as a place where the air itself feels heavy and where silence dominates in a way that is almost unnatural. Hikers often report an eerie stillness, a total absence of sound, even when birds or wind should be present. This oppressive quiet can produce a sense of isolation so complete that it feels as though the forest itself is watching, waiting for something to happen. Many who have lingered too long speak of a creeping unease, an instinctive warning that the land is not meant for the living. Shadowy figures are among the most commonly reported phenomena. People claim to see shapes flickering between trees or moving along the abandoned stone foundations of old homes. These shadows often vanish when approached, leaving no trace behind. Some visitors describe them as humanoid, while others appear more amorphous, shifting in size and form as they glide across the forest floor. The fleeting glimpses of these figures are enough to unsettle even the most skeptical explorers, creating an almost constant sensation of being observed. Accidents in Dudleytown are a recurring theme in its dark reputation. Visitors report tripping over unseen routes, losing footing on otherwise stable paths, and even suffering minor injuries under circumstances that seem impossible to explain. Some attribute these occurrences to the cursed energy that saturates the land, while others suggest that the forest itself is somehow actively hostile to intruders. Hikers often describe feeling compelled to leave, sensing that the forest's weight grows heavier with every step deeper into the village. Whispers and inexplicable sounds further add to the forest's unnerving atmosphere. Those who enter Dudleytown sometimes hear voices carried on the wind, soft and indistinct, as though the trees themselves are speaking. Footsteps echo along abandoned paths, yet when turned toward, the source is never found. Some campers report sudden chills, cold spots that appear without explanation, often accompanied by a sense of being followed by an unseen presence. These auditory and physical anomalies create a disorienting environment that makes the forest feel alive with something malevolent. The village's architecture contributes to its ghostly reputation. Crumbling foundations, moss-covered stones, and the skeletal remains of homes give the impression that Dudleytown is suspended in time, a snapshot of despair frozen beneath the trees. Visitors walking among the ruins describe a feeling of stepping into another era, a place where the boundary between past and present is blurred. Some even report feeling the emotions of the town's former inhabitants, the frustration, fear, and hopelessness that seem to linger in the earth itself. Over the years, Dudleytown has drawn paranormal investigators, thrill seekers, and historians alike. Many arrive hoping to catch a glimpse of the village's spectral residents, or to understand the source of its dark energy. Cameras sometimes record unexplained lights or shadows moving through the ruins, while audio devices pick up low-frequency sounds that cannot be accounted for by natural phenomena. Although skeptics question the veracity of these claims, the sheer consistency of reports suggests that something unusual resides in Dudleytown, something that continues to resist explanation. The combination of history, isolation, and supernatural lore makes Dudleytown a uniquely chilling place. Unlike urban haunted sites or notorious cemeteries, the village's power seems inherent, as if the land itself has absorbed centuries of misfortune and now radiates it outward. Every stone, tree, and shadow carries the weight of decades of fear and tragedy, creating an environment that feels alive in its darkness. For those brave or foolish enough to enter Dudleytown Forest, the experience is unforgettable. Silence hangs heavily, shadows flicker between trees, and the sense of being watched never leaves. Small accidents, chilling sensations, and glimpses of the inexplicable seem to remind every visitor that this is not a place meant for lingering. Dudleytown Forest is a testament to the enduring power of history and legend. A place where the land itself has become a vessel for darkness, and where the spirits of the past remain restless, waiting for the next intruder to wander too far into their domain. Just outside the bustling streets of Chicago lies Archer Woods, a seemingly quiet stretch of forest that hides a chilling secret. Its proximity to Resurrection Cemetery, one of America's most haunted graveyards, has long intertwined the two in local legend and lore. The forested paths are filled with dense undergrowth, towering oaks, and an eerie stillness that can unnerve even the most seasoned hikers. But what draws attention to Archer Woods is not just its natural beauty or peaceful trails. It is the lingering presence of the supernatural, particularly the ghostly figure known as Resurrection Mary, whose tragic story has haunted the area for decades. Resurrection Mary is perhaps the most famous ghost in Illinois. Legend says she was a young woman who attended a dance at the old O'Hare Ballroom in the 1930s. On her way home, she was struck by a car along Archer Avenue and died tragically young. Since then, countless drivers, hikers, and local residents have reported seeing a young woman in a white dress. But Mary is not confined to the edges of the road. Witnesses claim that sometimes she disappears from the pavement, only to reappear within the depths of Archer Woods, vanishing entirely into the dense trees as if absorbed by the forest itself. Visitors to Archer Woods often report an immediate feeling of unease upon entering. The forest is thick, the shadows long, and a heavy silence seems to hang over the trails. Even on sunny afternoons, There is an almost unnatural stillness, a quiet that feels alive and aware. Many hikers speak of the sensation that they are being watched, that unseen eyes track their every movement, following them deeper into the woods. The feeling is subtle, at first a prickling along the back of the neck, a slight shiver, but for those who linger, it can grow into a full-blown sense of dread. Some of the most common experiences in Archer Woods involve glimpses of fleeting figures between the trees. Witnesses describe seeing the shape of a young woman in white, sometimes walking, sometimes standing still, always vanishing when approached. It is never clear whether this is Mary herself or another lost spirit drawn to the forest from the nearby cemetery. Regardless, the effect is the same, a deep, unshakable feeling that something otherworldly resides in the woods, watching and waiting. Footsteps that cannot be explained are another recurring phenomenon. Visitors report hearing soft crunches on the leaf-strewn paths behind them, only to turn and find the trail empty. In some cases, the footsteps echo in rhythm with their own movements, keeping pace even as they quicken their steps. Others describe hearing multiple sets of footsteps approaching from different directions, creating a disorienting and terrifying experience. Some hikers have fled the woods entirely after hearing these unexplained sounds, convinced that the forest is inhabited by more than just lingering spirits. Strange lights are occasionally reported as well. Small orbs of pale blue or white light are said to drift silently among the trees, appearing and disappearing without warning. Some speculate that these lights are tied to the energies of Resurrection Cemetery, ghostly remnants of those buried nearby, or manifestations of Mary's restless spirit. Others believe they are the forest itself, alive with a supernatural presence that reacts to human intrusion. Whatever their origin, the lights add to the forest's reputation as a place where the boundary between the living and the dead grows thin. The forest's connection to Resurrection Cemetery is a key element of its haunting. The cemetery, established in the early 20th century, is known for its spectral phenomena, from mysterious apparitions to unexplained sounds echoing between gravestones. Archer Woods acts as an extension of this haunted space, a natural corridor where spirits can drift, move, or remain unseen. Those who enter the woods often find themselves walking along paths that seem to lead nowhere, or suddenly emerge near areas of the cemetery without remembering how they arrived. This blurring of geography and reality contributes to the forest's eerie mystique. Accounts of Resurrection Mary entering the woods are consistent over decades. Drivers along Archer Avenue report seeing a woman in white suddenly vanish into the trees, leaving the road empty. Hikers confirm seeing the same figure further inside the forest, her presence marked by a palpable drop in temperature, a heavy feeling in the chest, or a sudden, overwhelming sorrow. Many witnesses say that Mary's spirit seems sad but not malicious, as though she longs for something lost or seeks someone she will never find. Others, however, experience fear and disorientation, a reminder that even benevolent ghosts can inspire terror when they manifest in the living world. Even experienced paranormal investigators have noted the forest's unusual properties. Magnetic anomalies, sudden shifts in temperature, and unusual shadows are frequently reported, as well as recordings of faint whispers or disembodied voices captured in the quietest areas of the woods. Whether these phenomena are linked directly to Mary or to the broader energies of Resurrection Cemetery remains a matter of debate. What is certain is that Archer Woods is far more than a simple forest. It is a threshold between the natural and the supernatural, a place where stories, sightings, and unexplained occurrences continue to thrive. For anyone venturing into Archer Woods, the forest offers a haunting reminder that the past is never truly gone. Between the towering trees, the hidden paths, and the shadowed undergrowth, visitors can feel the lingering presence of Resurrection Mary, footsteps that follow, and whispers that echo through the air. It is a place where legend, grief, and the unexplained intertwine, creating an experience that lingers long after the forest is left behind. In Archer Woods, the living and the dead coexist in uneasy proximity, and every visitor walks among shadows that are anything but imaginary. Helltown Forest, located in the abandoned region of Boston Mills, Ohio, is a place that has long captured the imagination of thrill-seekers, paranormal enthusiasts, and locals alike. Often referred to simply as Helltown, this area is a dense, shadowed woodland filled with crumbling buildings, overgrown streets, and the remnants of a community that vanished under mysterious circumstances. Over the decades, it has become synonymous with urban legend, from tales of satanic rituals to reports of mutated creatures, and a forest that seems to breathe with a darkness all its own. Those who venture into its depths often leave with stories that defy explanation, whispered warnings, and the unnerving sense that the forest itself is watching. The history of Helltown is complex, grounded in both real events and the fertile soil of rumor. In the 1970s, the federal government condemned much of the town due to concerns about toxic waste contamination. Residents were forced to leave, homes were abandoned, and schools closed, leaving the streets empty and the forests to reclaim the land. But as the town emptied, the silence became almost unnatural, and rumors began to circulate. Some spoke of sudden disappearances, strange accidents, and inexplicable sounds in the surrounding woods. Over time, these stories evolved into a broader mythology, a cursed forest where the veil between the living and the supernatural is thin, and where unseen forces linger just out of sight. Visitors to Helltown Forest often describe an overwhelming feeling of dread upon entering. Even during the daytime, the forest exudes an oppressive atmosphere, the trees forming a dense canopy that blocks sunlight and casts the forest floor into shadow. Trails twist unpredictably, and the abandoned roads and crumbling structures amplify the sense of isolation. Many hikers report the sensation of being watched, a subtle yet persistent awareness that something unseen is tracking their movements. This feeling intensifies after dusk, when the forest's shadows deepen and the wind rustles through the leaves like distant whispers. One of the most persistent legends involves hooded figures silently standing among the trees. Visitors claim to see these figures at the edge of trails, motionless yet fully aware, their faces obscured by dark hoods. When approached, the figures vanish into the shadows, leaving behind only an echo of footsteps or a faint chill in the air. Some accounts suggest that the hooded figures are not entirely human, or that they are spectral remnants of former townspeople bound to the forest by some unknown curse. Others believe they may be witnesses to rituals, a terrifying sight meant to warn or test the living who dare trespass. Satanic ritual legends are another dark thread woven into Helltown's lore. Stories abound of pentagrams etched into trees, strange symbols carved into abandoned walls, and fires lit in hidden clearings deep in the forest. While there is little concrete evidence to support the existence of organized occult activity, the rumors persist, fueled by the area's long history of abandonment and mystery. Hikers report sudden feelings of unease near certain clearings, as if the energy in the space itself is hostile, charged with unseen intent. Some have even claimed to hear chanting or whispers when alone in the forest at night, though no one else is present. Mutated creatures are yet another element of Helltown legend. Sightings describe humanoid figures with grotesque features, unusually tall or distorted forms, and glowing eyes that pierce the darkness. These beings are said to move with unnatural speed and stealth, slipping between the trees with ease and vanishing just when they seem most visible. Some speculate that these creatures are the result of experimental contamination from the town's past, while others claim they are entities drawn to the energy of fear and abandonment. Regardless of their origin, encounters leave witnesses shaken, questioning the line between reality and imagination. Helltown Forest is also infamous for the sounds that carry through the trees. Visitors speak of cries and screams echoing without source, often rising and falling in intensity as if answering some invisible call. Footsteps, snapping branches, and rustling leaves frequently accompany these sounds. Yet when explored, the source is never found. Some hikers report sudden, icy gusts of wind, as though the forest itself is breathing, and others speak of a pressure that seems to push inward from all sides, compelling them to leave. These sensory experiences contribute to the forest's reputation as a place where natural laws do not entirely apply. The abandoned structures scattered throughout the forest amplify its haunting character. Crumbling houses, rusted cars, and shuttered storefronts serve as grim reminders of the life that once thrived here. These relics are often the backdrop for unexplained events, objects moving on their own, shadows crossing windows, and strange noises emanating from empty buildings. Explorers often report a sense of déjà vu or temporal disorientation, as though the forest and its abandoned town exist outside conventional time, caught between the past and the present. Despite the warnings and dark stories, Helltown Forest continues to attract visitors. Paranormal investigators, urban explorers, and thrill seekers enter its depths in search of evidence, excitement, or simply the chance to confront the unknown. Most leave with little more than a story of unease and the creeping awareness that the forest does not easily release those who enter. Others return with photographs capturing inexplicable lights, shadowy figures, or distortions that defy logical explanation. Whatever the outcome, one truth is undeniable. Helltown Forest is a place alive with mystery. A location where legend and reality collide in a dense, shadowed wilderness. In the end, Helltown Forest remains an enduring enigma. Between the abandoned roads, dense woods, and scattered ruins, visitors experience a forest that seems aware of their presence, a land infused with decades of fear, rumor, and misfortune. Hooded figures, cries in the dark, and reports of mutated entities continue to fuel the forest's reputation, making it one of the most unsettling and infamous haunted places in America. Those who enter do so at their own risk, for the forest has a way of leaving its mark on the mind, on the senses, and sometimes on those who never return the same as they were. Green Mountain National Forest in Vermont stretches across hundreds of square miles of rugged wilderness, dense hardwood forests, and mountain ridges that seem to touch the sky. Its natural beauty draws hikers, campers, and nature enthusiasts year-round, offering trails that wind through moss-covered rocks, crystal-clear streams, and quiet valleys. Yet beneath this picturesque exterior lies a darker history, one that has earned a section of the forest a place in one of America's most unsettling legends. The Bennington Triangle. Between the 1940s and 1950s, a number of people disappeared without a trace in this area, creating a legacy of fear and mystery that continues to haunt the forest today. The first reported disappearances began in the late 1940s. Residents and hikers spoke of people vanishing from familiar trails, often leaving behind personal belongings, footprints that suddenly ended, or vehicles abandoned along the roadside. One of the earliest and most well-known cases involved Mitty Rivers, an experienced hiker who simply disappeared while hunting in the dense forest. Despite search parties scouring the area, no trace of him was ever found. The unexplained nature of these vanishings fueled speculation and fear, with locals beginning to refer to the area as the Bennington Triangle, drawing comparisons to other mysterious zones like the Bermuda Triangle. Over the following decade, several more disappearances were reported within this triangle of forest, mountains, and remote roads. People walking alone, hiking in groups, or even driving along rural paths sometimes vanished without a trace. Some left behind notes or clues that hinted at distress, while others simply seemed to evaporate into thin air. The patterns were puzzling. The disappearances often occurred during daylight, in good weather, and in areas familiar to the victims. Nothing in the terrain or environment explained why these people could disappear so completely, giving rise to rumors that the forest itself was a trap, an almost supernatural presence that preyed on the unwary. Modern hikers often report strange experiences in the forest that echo the legends of the past. One common phenomenon is the sensation of being followed, even when no one else is visible. Footsteps seem to match their own, or rustling leaves and snapping twigs sound just behind them, only to vanish when they turn to investigate. Others report feeling watched from the shadows, an invisible presence that maintains a silent, steady gaze. Many who venture off the main trails find themselves disoriented, wandering for hours in areas they thought they knew, as though the forest itself is shifting to confuse or trap them. Another chilling experience, reported by visitors, involves voices carried on the wind. Hikers and campers describe hearing faint calls of their names, whispered in tones that are almost familiar but not quite right. The voices seem to drift through the trees, disappearing when followed, leaving a haunting echo in the minds of those who hear them. Some say these voices are the lost souls of the vanished, trapped within the forest and attempting to communicate with the living. Others suggest that the wind carries distorted sounds from distant places, creating the illusion of voices where none exists. Whatever the explanation, the effect is universally unsettling, leaving an impression of the forest as something alive and aware. Unexplained lights are also a recurring element in the lore of Green Mountain National Forest. Some hikers have reported glowing orbs drifting among the trees at dusk, small spheres of pale light that appear and disappear without warning. At times, these lights seem to move with intelligence, weaving between trunks or hovering above the forest floor. Skeptics suggest fireflies or reflections of sunlight, but many witnesses insist that the lights behave in ways that cannot be explained by natural phenomena, further fueling speculation about the forest's supernatural aspects. The terrain of the forest contributes to its mystique. Its dense undergrowth, hidden ravines, and winding trails create a natural labyrinth where orientation is easily lost. Fog often settles in the valleys, muffling sound and making even familiar paths feel alien. Streams and rivers twist unpredictably through the landscape, sometimes forming obstacles that seem more deliberate than natural. Combined with the forest's isolation, these conditions create the perfect environment for disappearances to occur and for stories of haunting to grow. Despite the danger implied by legend, Green Mountain National Forest remains a popular destination for adventurers. Many hikers approach the forest with skepticism, eager to explore the wilderness and see for themselves whether the Bennington Triangle's reputation is deserved. Some return with stories of Oniza, fleeting shadow, a voice calling from nowhere, or the sudden sense of being watched. Others leave the forest with nothing unusual, but even they often carry a subtle, lingering sense of the forest's power, a reminder that something beyond understanding may dwell among the trees. Local lore persists alongside documented disappearances, keeping the forest alive in collective memory. Campfire stories warn visitors to stay on marked trails, to avoid wandering alone, and to respect the land as more than just a natural space. These stories serve as both cautionary tales and a reminder of the forest's enduring mystery, preserving the legend of the Bennington Triangle for new generations of hikers and thrill-seekers. For those who venture into Green Mountain National Forest today, the forest offers beauty intertwined with an underlying unease. Between the dense foliage, winding trails, and steep bridges, hikers can feel the weight of history pressing down, the echoes of the vanished drifting through the wind, and the subtle suggestion that something in the forest watches and waits. It is a place where nature and legend converge, where the unexplained is never far from the path, and where every shadowed corner holds the possibility of a mystery that has yet to reveal itself. In this forest, the vanished are never truly gone, and the living walk in a realm where the line between reality and the unknown remains perilously thin. Devil's Tramping Ground, located in a remote forest near Chapel Hill, North Carolina, is one of the state's most notorious paranormal sites. At first glance, it appears to be an ordinary clearing in the woods, roughly 40 feet in diameter, surrounded by dense trees and underbrush. But this barren circle is unlike any other. For decades, locals, campers, and curious visitors have noted a disturbing fact. Nothing grows in the circle. No grass, no weeds, no flowers, just a perfect, lifeless ring of dirt. Animals avoid it entirely, and even insects seem reluctant to cross its boundary. Over time, this oddity has become shrouded in legend, earning its name and reputation as a place where the devil himself allegedly walks. The circle's eerie properties have puzzled scientists and skeptics alike. While soil composition and drainage have been examined, nothing natural can fully explain the stark emptiness of the area. Some say the devil uses it as a place to pace at night, a ritual that leaves the ground scorched of life. Locals tell stories that the circle is cursed, that the earth itself rejects life within its bounds. The surrounding forest seems to acknowledge the circle's unnatural state. The trees grow twisted and uneven at the edges, casting shadows that appear longer and darker than elsewhere in the forest. Campers and visitors often report a sense of unease long before entering the circle, a heavy feeling in the chest, a subtle prickling along the skin, and the impression of being watched are common experiences. As night falls, the forest around the circle seems to come alive with subtle sounds, branches snapping in the distance, faint rustling of leaves, and whispers that drift through the trees. Those who camp nearby frequently describe restless sleep and vivid, unsettling dreams, often involving shadowy figures pacing just beyond the circle, or unseen forces reaching toward them. One of the most chilling aspects of devilish tramping ground is the reports of campers waking up outside the circle despite having slept within it. People who have set up tents or sleeping bags inside the barren ring often awaken in the forest beyond its edge, as if dragged by invisible hands. Some say the experience is accompanied by a rush of cold air, a feeling of weight pressing on their chest, or the sense of an unseen presence hovering above them. No matter how thoroughly campers set up their sites, many report this strange occurrence, fueling the belief that the circle is actively defended by some malevolent force. Animals' avoidance of the circle adds to its eerie reputation. Deer, foxes, and even birds are said to skirt the perimeter, never entering. Insects rarely crawl across its surface, and small mammals that live nearby are conspicuously absent from the center. This behavior has contributed to theories that the circle is a supernatural hotspot, a place charged with dark energy so intense that living beings instinctively flee it. Some local legends suggest that the devil himself walks the circle nightly, stamping out life as he paces, while others claim it is a portal to a realm where evil lingers just beyond the physical world. Many visitors also report unexplained sounds and movements near the circle. Footsteps, faint laughter, and scratching noises are frequently heard at night, yet no source is ever found. Hikers have claimed to see shadowy figures at the edge of the clearing, often disappearing when approached. Others recount strange lights hovering near the tree line, flickering and pulsing in ways that cannot be attributed to natural phenomena. These reports, consistent across decades, reinforce the notion that the tramping ground is far more than an empty patch of earth. It is a place alive with unseen forces, a threshold between the ordinary and the paranormal. Stories of ritual and dark energy have long surrounded the circle. Some claim that it has been used by witches and occultists as a site for ceremonies, drawn to the area's reputed supernatural power. Others suggest that the circle's properties predate human settlement, that it has been a focal point of malevolent energy for centuries, long before the forest grew around it. Whatever its origin, the tramping ground continues to attract those seeking to test their courage, to explore the unknown, or to witness the unexplained firsthand. Visitors describe a peculiar sense of time when near the circle. Minutes can stretch into hours, and the forest seems to warp around those who linger too long. Some report feeling dizzy or disoriented, as if the physical laws of the world are subtly shifting. Even experienced hikers and campers, accustomed to the rhythms of the forest, find themselves unnerved and cautious, instinctively leaving the area as night deepens. The combination of barren earth, unnatural stillness, and unexplained phenomena creates an environment that few can ignore. Despite, or perhaps because of its terrifying reputation, Devil's Tramping Ground continues to attract adventurers, paranormal investigators, and thrill seekers. Some come armed with cameras and audio recorders, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. Others arrive simply to experience the forest's unnerving atmosphere firsthand. While skeptics attribute much of the legend to local folklore or the human mind's tendency to fill in the unknown, the consistency of the stories, spanning decades, has ensured that the circle's mystique endures. For those who encounter Devil's Tramping Ground, the experience is unforgettable. The barren circle, the forest that surrounds it, and the invisible presence that seems to guard its edges combine to create a sense of dread unlike any other. Whether it is truly cursed, or whether the mind is reacting to the isolation and mystery of the place, the tramping ground commands respect and caution. Visitors leave with more than memories. They carry the weight of the forest's dark legend, the sense that the earth itself has rejected life, and the enduring question of what unseen force protects the circle, pacing endlessly through the night. Mark Twain National Forest in southern Missouri stretches over 1.5 million acres of rugged hills, deep valleys, and dense woodlands, while its natural beauty attracts hikers, campers, and hunters from across the country. The forest is also home to some of the state's most enduring and mysterious legends. For generations, locals and explorers have whispered about ghostly miners, restless Native American spirits, and strange phenomena that defy explanation. The forest, named for the famous author Mark Twain, holds secrets beneath its canopy, and those who wander too deeply often report experiences that leave them questioning what is real and what is supernatural. Much of the forest's haunted reputation is tied to its history. During the 19th century, southern Missouri was a hub for lead and zinc mining, and small mining towns once dotted the hills and valleys. Many miners faced harsh conditions, accidents, and early deaths, leaving behind families and empty homes. Over time, these abandoned mining communities faded into the forest, their structures overtaken by trees and undergrowth. Locals began to report strange lights moving through the trees at night, hearing the echo of pickaxes and hammers long after the mines had closed. Witnesses describe flickering lanterns, swinging along paths where no one is visible, and shadows that dart between the trees, vanishing when approached. Some claim these are the spirits of miners reliving their labor, eternally bound to the forest. In addition to the ghostly miners, the forest is said to be haunted by Native American spirits. The region was once home to several tribes, whose presence and traditions left a profound imprint on the land. Hunters, hikers, and campers frequently report hearing distant drums and chants echoing across valleys, even when no one is around. These sounds are often described as rhythmic and haunting, carrying a sense of ceremony or ritual. Some visitors report a feeling of being guided or observed by unseen figures, a quiet presence moving just beyond their line of sight. Many believe that these spirits are protectors of the land. Explorers of Mark Twain National Forest often encounter other unexplained phenomena. Lights flicker between trees, sometimes hovering in mid-air or moving along old trails. Hikers have described glowing orbs that appear suddenly, drift toward them, and then vanish without a trace. Some orbs appear red or orange, like the lanterns of long-dead miners, while others are pale blue or white, evoking the spectral essence of spirits. Footsteps are frequently reported along deserted trails, always just behind or beside the witness, yet, when turned to confront, nothing is there. Others have experienced sudden chills, unexplained gusts of wind, or the feeling of being pushed or guided, as though unseen hands are present in the forest. Certain areas of the forest seem particularly charged with supernatural energy. Abandoned mining shafts, crumbling foundations of old towns, and isolated clearings are all focal points for strange experiences. Visitors often describe a sensation of time distortion in these areas, losing track of hours or feeling as though they have walked the same path repeatedly without realizing it. Some report hearing conversations in the distance, sometimes whispers, sometimes the echo of laughter, but when investigated, there is no one to be found. These experiences are so consistent that many believe the land itself has absorbed the memories and energies of those who lived and labored there, creating a lingering presence that continues to interact with the living. Camping in the forest can amplify these eerie experiences. Many who set up tents near abandoned towns or mining sites report restless nights, hearing footsteps circling their camps or the soft tapping of what sounds like mining tools on rock. Others describe hearing drums, chants, or whispers echoing across the trees, often waking them suddenly in the middle of the night. Some hikers awake to find their belongings displaced, tents disturbed, or strange symbols etched into nearby trees. Whether the forest's energies are playful, protective, or malevolent is unclear, but the impact is undeniable, leaving a lasting impression on anyone who spends time there. Even in daylight, the forest retains a sense of the uncanny. Shadows seem to move in unusual ways, and thick undergrowth can conceal figures glimpsed from the corner of the eye. Visitors often describe a feeling of being observed, a prickling sensation on the skin that suggests the forest itself is alive and aware. Some explorers report sudden feelings of fear or sadness without any visible cause, as though the forest's history, its tragedies, rituals, and unquiet spirits presses against them from every direction. Despite these warnings, Mark Twain National Forest continues to attract visitors eager to witness its mysteries firsthand. Paranormal investigators, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers venture into the woods in search of evidence of spectral miners, Native American spirits, and the unexplained lights and sounds. Cameras sometimes capture faint orbs or shadows, while audio recordings reveal low-frequency rumbles, footsteps, or indistinct whispers. Many return with stories of strange occurrences that cannot be explained, further reinforcing the forest's reputation as a place where the living and the dead coexist in uneasy proximity. For those who walk among the trees of Mark Twain National Forest, the experience is unforgettable. The whispers of miners long gone, the echo of distant drums, and the flickering lights that defy explanation create a haunting environment, blending history and legend in ways that feel tangible. Every hill, hollow, and trail carries the weight of lives lost and memories retained. A forest where the past refuses to rest. Hikers, campers, and a place where spirits of the past continue to walk, drum, and watch, waiting for those who dare to enter. In Mark Twain National Forest, the natural beauty of Missouri's wilderness conceals a darker world. Ghostly miners, restless Native American spirits, unexplained lights, and echoing drums all create an atmosphere of mystery and tension, reminding visitors that the forest is more than just trees and trails. It is a place of memory, energy, and the unexplained, where every footstep may be followed, every shadow may conceal a presence, and the living walk among the echoes of those who have never truly left. Skidmore's spook-like woods, straddling the Missouri and Oklahoma border, is a dense stretch of forest renowned for one of the most enduring and baffling mysteries in the United States. The Hornet Spooklight. Locals have whispered about the phenomenon for generations, and visitors from all over the country travel to this remote area in hopes of witnessing the strange, glowing orb that moves through the trees, defying explanation. The forest itself seems ordinary at first glance, with winding dirt roads, thick undergrowth, and towering oaks, but it conceals a secret that has perplexed scientists, folklorists, and thrill seekers alike. The Hornet Spooklight is an unexplained light that appears near the small town of Skidmore, a remote area whose name has become synonymous with the mysterious phenomenon. Witnesses describe the light as a glowing orb, often yellow or orange, that floats above the forest floor, hovering and moving in ways that appear intelligent. Unlike ordinary lights or vehicles, the spooklight changes direction suddenly, accelerates or slows at will, and sometimes seems to follow those who approach it. Drivers along the rural roads of the area report the light chasing their cars, disappearing when they stop, or veering into the woods, only to reappear moments later in another location. For hikers and campers in Skidmore's Spooklight Woods, the experience is just as eerie. Many who walk the forest trails report seeing the glowing orb dart between trees, sometimes hovering at eye level before suddenly shooting away into darkness. Those brave enough to follow it often become disoriented. The dense foliage and winding paths create a labyrinthine environment where it is easy to lose one's bearings. Even experienced hikers describe an overwhelming sense of being watched, a subtle but persistent pressure in the air that suggests the forest itself is alive with unseen energy. The spooklight has been witnessed under all conditions: clear nights, foggy evenings, and even during rainstorms. Some describe it as a single light, while others report seeing multiple orbs dancing in the distance. Witnesses often feel a strange pull toward the light, as though it is calling them deeper into the woods. Those who chase it rarely find a source, only the sensation of being drawn further into the dense forest, where shadows lengthen and ordinary landmarks become unrecognizable. Over the years, many theories have attempted to explain the hornet spooklight. Some suggest it is the result of natural gas emissions from underground deposits, igniting to produce a faint glow. Others hypothesize that it is a rare optical illusion, a reflection of distant car headlights or atmospheric phenomena unique to the area. Yet none of these explanations account for the spooklight's erratic movements, its ability to appear and disappear at will, or its apparent intelligence in following people and vehicles. Skeptics are left perplexed, while those who have witnessed the light firsthand remain convinced that something otherworldly is at work. Local legend adds another layer to the forest's eerie reputation. Some residents claim that the light is a restless spirit, perhaps of a miner or settler who died tragically in the area. Others suggest that it is a warning, a supernatural sentinel protecting the forest from intruders or those who would exploit its mysteries. Stories passed down through generations describe travelers being lured by the light, drawn off roads and trails, and returning hours later with no memory of how they got there. While many of these accounts are anecdotal, they contribute to the forest's reputation as a place where the natural and supernatural intersect in unsettling ways. The phenomenon is not confined to a single location within the woods. Witnesses have observed the spooky light appearing along old, abandoned roads, near small creeks, and even hovering above open clearings. Sometimes the light seems to anticipate the movements of those who watch it, appearing ahead of them, or suddenly retreating to keep its distance. The unpredictability of the orb adds to the forest's ominous atmosphere, leaving visitors with a lingering sense of unease long after they leave the area. Explorers who spend extended periods in the woods often report additional phenomena. Alongside sightings of the glowing orb, some have described hearing faint whispers, rustling in the underbrush, or branches snapping when no wind is present. Others report feeling sudden chills or an inexplicable pressure, as though invisible hands are brushing past them or guiding them along the trails. These experiences, combined with the spooklight sightings, create an environment where the forest itself feels alive, a place where ordinary rules of nature and physics do not fully apply. Despite the forest's eerie reputation, Skidmore's Spooklight Woods continues to draw adventurers, paranormal enthusiasts, and curious travelers. Nightly vigils are sometimes held along the roads and trails, with cameras and recording equipment set up in hopes of capturing the light on film. While skeptics may argue that many sightings are illusions or hoaxes, the consistency and frequency of reports over decades suggest something extraordinary is occurring. Those who visit often leave with more than photographs or stories. They carry the memory of a forest that seems to breathe, a light that moves with purpose, and the haunting awareness that some mysteries are beyond human comprehension. For those who experience the hornet spooklight firsthand, the encounter is unforgettable. The glow in the darkness, the sudden shifts in direction, and the eerie sense of being watched combine to create an atmosphere of suspense and fear. Even the bravest visitors often speak of leaving the forest with a deep respect for its power and a lingering unease that stays with them long after the light has vanished. Skidmore's Spooklight Woods is more than a forest. It is a place where legend walks hand in hand with reality, where the natural world and the unexplained converge, and where a single glowing orb can transform a quiet night into a haunting encounter that defies explanation. In the end, the hornet spooklight remains a mystery. Scientists, skeptics, and curious explorers continue to search for answers. But the glowing orb dances on, teasing, elusive, and enigmatic. Within Skidmore's Spooklight Woods, every shadow, every flicker of light, and every sound in the dark serves as a reminder that some places in the world are meant to challenge our understanding, to inspire wonder, and to warn us that the unknown is always closer than it seems. In the Pacific Northwest, where the skies often hang low with mist and the forests stretch in endless waves of dark green, lies the Olympic National Forest, This sprawling wilderness in Washington is a place of both beauty and mystery. With towering evergreens, deep valleys, and fog that clings to the mountainsides, it creates an atmosphere where the veil between the natural and the supernatural feels dangerously thin. To the casual hiker, it may appear like a place of peace, but those who linger too long in its depths know the unsettling truth. This forest harbors legends of disappearances, shadowy figures, and spectral loggers still swinging their axes long after death. Stories of strangeness in Olympic National Forest go back decades. Some of the earliest reports came from loggers in the late 1800s. These men, who spent their lives carving into the heart of the forest, often spoke of hearing phantom chopping sounds echoing through the trees at night. They claimed the sounds would grow closer, like someone splitting wood right beside their camp. Yet when they searched, no one was ever there. A few loggers swore they saw men dressed in old flannel, carrying axes, who seemed to melt into the trees when approached. At first, these tales were dismissed as the result of exhaustion or drink, but they continued to surface over the years, building into one of the region's most enduring mysteries. But the haunting of Olympic National Forest does not end with phantom loggers. In more recent times, hikers and campers have spoken of tall, shadowy figures moving among the trees. These forms appear just at the edge of vision, blending so seamlessly with the tree trunks that it's impossible to tell if they are people or something else entirely. Witnesses describe a chilling sensation of being watched, followed by the realization that the shadows shift when they move, as though deliberately keeping their distance. Some say the figures stand impossibly tall, with long limbs that reach out into the fog. A few unlucky travelers claim the shadows step closer at night, surrounding campsites in silence, their presence so heavy that sleep becomes impossible. Disappearance is another theme that ties this forest to the realm of the paranormal. Between the 1960s and 1990s, a number of hikers and campers vanished within Olympic's expanse. Some were eventually found, often in places search parties had combed before, with no clear explanation for how they got there. Others were never recovered at all, swallowed by the woods. Local legends began to grow, suggesting that the forest itself was alive, or that something within it lured travelers deeper until they could not find their way back. Some say the shadow figures themselves are responsible, guiding hikers into a place where they simply cease to exist. One chilling account involves a pair of friends who camped near the Quinault rainforest within the national park. They claimed that, during the night, they awoke to the sound of chopping wood, rhythmic and deliberate, echoing in the fog. Assuming another group was nearby, they thought little of it until the sound circled their camp. No light of a fire or lantern was ever seen, only the eerie cadence of axe against wood. Later that same night, they heard footsteps just outside their tent, heavy and deliberate. When they gathered the courage to look, they found no footprints in the soil, only the dense mist clinging to the trees. By morning, they packed up and left, convinced that something not of this world had paid them a visit. Other visitors have reported disembodied voices drifting through the forest. Sometimes these are whispers, so faint they can barely be distinguished from the wind. Other times, they sound like clear calls, someone shouting a name, beckoning them deeper into the woods. Hikers often describe these voices as eerily familiar, sometimes sounding like loved ones or friends who weren't even present. Those who follow them frequently become disoriented, struggling to retrace their steps, as though the forest itself shifts around them. This phenomenon has caused some to wonder if Olympic National Forest sits upon a spiritual crossroads, a place where echoes of the dead mingle with the living. The locals, many of whom grew up near the forest, have their own beliefs about what dwells within. Some tie the shadowy figures to Native American spirits who once inhabited the land. Others suggest that the loggers who died in accidents, crushed by trees, or lost in remote camps, never left. Their restless souls, tied to the work that defined them, continue swinging their axes even in death. A darker theory insists that the shadow figures are not human spirits at all, but something older, entities that thrive in the untouched wilderness, feeding off fear and confusion to draw people away from safety. Even in modern times, with GPS and technology, the forest manages to bewilder those who wander into its depths. Phones lose signal, compasses spin erratically, and hikers find themselves walking in circles despite following a straight path. These disorienting effects fuel the legend that the forest resists intrusion, pushing back against those who try to tame it. Those who experience these phenomena often return with an unshakable sense of dread, haunted not just by what they saw, but by the feeling that the forest wanted them to stay forever. Shoshone National Forest in Wyoming is one of America's most rugged and untamed landscapes, a place where jagged peaks, thick timber, and sweeping valleys create a wilderness both breathtaking and intimidating. It is the first federally protected national forest in the United States, and its expanse stretches across lands once fiercely guarded by native tribes who saw it not just as territory, but as sacred ground. Beneath its beauty lies a darker atmosphere, one that has given rise to eerie tales whispered among hikers, hunters, and rangers who have dared to spend their nights deep within its reaches. The most chilling of these stories centers on the apparition of a ghostly Native American warrior who is said to ride the storm winds, a spectral figure whose presence can be felt long before he is ever seen. When the weather turns violent in Shoshone, with thunder rumbling across the mountains and lightning tearing through the dark sky, some say that is when the warrior comes. Travelers have reported hearing the steady beat of phantom hoofsteps echoing through the valleys, a sound like a mounted rider galloping across the land. Yet no horse or man appears in sight. The hoofbeats draw closer, sometimes circling campsites, and those who have heard them describe a sensation of being stalked by an unseen rider who watches from the shadows. Accounts of this storm-bound spirit go back generations. Native folklore speaks of a warrior who was struck down defending his people, his body never properly buried. His spirit, bound to the land, is said to ride eternally with the tempests, his voice carried in the howling winds. Early settlers and trappers reported strange encounters as well. Figures glimpsed at the tree line during lightning strikes. A horseman cloaked in shadows who vanished as quickly as he appeared. For those who live and work near the forest, the tales are more than mere campfire stories. They serve as warnings to those who underestimate the power of the wilderness or forget the spirits that linger in these ancient lands. One hunter described a chilling encounter while camping alone near the base of the Absaroka Range. As night fell, a storm rolled in. The man took shelter in his tent, but around midnight, he heard the unmistakable sound of hoofbeats pounding the ground outside. At first, he thought it might be wild horses, but when he unzipped the flap, nothing was there, just rain pelting the earth and the moan of the wind through the trees. The hoofbeats resumed minutes later, circling his campsite. He said it felt as though the ground itself trembled with every step, yet no tracks were found in the mud come morning. The hunter never returned to that spot. Others have claimed to see the warrior himself. Witnesses describe a tall figure riding a massive horse, both glowing faintly in the stormlight, as if illuminated from within. His eyes burn with a pale fire, and he carries a spear or tomahawk, raised as though ready for battle. He never speaks, but his gaze, they say, is enough to chill a person to the bone. Those who lock eyes with him feel paralyzed, unable to move until the figure fades back into the storm. Strangely, most reports note that the warrior does not appear to attack or harm. Instead, he is seen as a guardian or a restless sentinel, warning those who dare trespass too far. Even seasoned rangers have admitted to experiences they cannot explain. One ranger recalled hiking out to find lost campers after a sudden mountain storm. Along the way, he swore he saw a figure on horseback, keeping pace with him, always just at the edge of vision, vanishing whenever he turned to look directly. He followed the strange presence through the woods until it led him straight to the missing campers, who were stranded and soaked, huddled under a makeshift shelter. When the ranger later tried to retrace his steps, the figure was gone, as if it had only appeared to guide him in that one moment of need. Skeptics point to natural explanations. The echo of thunder rolling through the valleys resembling hoofbeats, or the way lightning can cast strange illusions among the trees. Yet even they struggle to explain the consistency of the reports. and the uncanny feeling described by those who encountered the spirit. Scientists who study infrasound low-frequency vibrations created during storms suggest these sounds can trigger feelings of dread and even hallucinations. Still, those who have stood in the rain-soaked dark of Shoshone insist their experiences were far too real to dismiss as tricks of the mind. For locals, the legend of the ghostly warrior is less about fear and more about respect. They say the forest is alive with memory, carrying the weight of those who walked it before. The warrior is not a monster, but a reminder. This land is powerful, sacred, and unforgiving. It demands reverence. Those who laugh off the warnings and march into the wilderness without humility often return with stories that shake their skepticism more. Sometimes they do not return at all. Today, hikers entering Shoshone National Forest still whisper about the storm rider. Some come seeking the thrill of seeing him. Others quietly hope they never will. The legend remains one of Wyoming's most enduring supernatural tales, woven into the very fabric of its landscape. When thunder echoes through the canyons and the first drops of rain begin to fall, many pause and listen closely, waiting to hear the phantom hoofbeats of the restless warrior, who still rides the storm. The Okefenokee Swamp, straddling the border between Georgia and Florida, is one of the most mysterious and unsettling wildernesses in America. Vast, dark, and tangled with moss-draped cypress trees, it is a place where the line between the natural and the supernatural seems to blur. With more than 400,000 acres of swamp and forest, it has long been a source of eerie legends, ghost stories, and tales of things that should not exist. Those who venture deep into its waters often speak of strange lights, phantom voices, and ghostly apparitions that drift across the black surface of the swamp like memories that refuse to fade. For centuries, the Okefenokee has carried an air of dread. Native tribes who lived in the region warned of spirits that haunted its marshy depths. They spoke of cursed waters and places where restless souls wandered, forever bound to the swamp. Hunters and trappers who ignored these warnings often returned with chilling tales or, sometimes didn't return at all. Early European settlers also whispered of seeing spectral shapes moving between the trees at twilight, their lanterns swinging, though no hands held them. The swamp quickly gained a reputation not only for its treacherous terrain, but also for its otherworldly presence. One of the most persistent legends is that of the phantom lights that flicker across the waters on moonless nights. Described as glowing orbs that hover just above the swamp's surface, they dart and weave as if alive. Sometimes they appear as single lantern-like glows, while at other times they multiply, dancing across the mist like a procession of spirits. Witnesses say the lights will sometimes draw travelers deeper into the swamp, leading them off paths and into the most dangerous waters. Explanations range from swamp gas to reflections, yet those who have seen them insist they move with purpose, following and sometimes chasing anyone who dares to watch too long. Hunters, particularly in the early 1900s, often told of phantom boats drifting silently through the waterways. These vessels, described as simple canoes or old fishing boats, would glide across the swamp without a sound, their outlines faint in the fog. No paddles were seen, and no ripples followed in the water. When approached, the boats would vanish, dissolving into the mist as if they had never existed. Some locals believed these were the spirits of those who had drowned in the swamp, doomed to wander endlessly. Others feared they were omens, warnings of tragedy yet to come. Another unsettling phenomenon reported in the Okefenokee is the sound of ghostly cries that echo across the water. Campers have described waking in the dead of night to the wailing of unseen voices. Some sound human, like mournful sobbing, while others resemble animal howls twisted into unnatural tones. Often, these cries are accompanied by the sound of splashing, as though something massive is moving in the water nearby it. When investigated, nothing is ever found. Locals sometimes say the swamp remembers those who perish within it, and their cries are the echoes of lives lost in its depths. Stranger still are the stories of shadowy figures glimpsed among the trees. Fishermen and hikers report seeing human-shaped forms, tall and thin, standing silently at the water's edge. When light is shown in their direction, the figures dissolve into mist. Some claim to have felt watched for hours. The prickling sensation of eyes following them through the forested parts of the swamp. A few even insist they were stalked by something that walked parallel to them, hidden behind the trees, its footsteps audible but its form never fully revealed. One chilling tale tells of a group of hunters who camped near the swamp's edge in the 1930s. Late one night, they were startled awake by the sound of paddles striking water. When they looked out toward the dark, they saw a procession of boats moving silently through the mist, each carrying ghostly figures, holding lanterns. The hunters claimed the figures were dressed in tattered clothing, and their faces were pale and featureless. As the men watched in horror, the ghostly flotilla drifted past and disappeared into the reeds. The hunters fled the swamp the next morning and never returned. Even in modern times, the Okefenokee continues to unsettle those who enter it. Kayakers have captured strange orbs of light in photographs, though none can explain them. Birdwatchers have reported hearing voices calling their names from deep within the trees, though no one else was nearby. Rangers who patrol the swamp at night admit they sometimes feel a sudden, overwhelming dread that forces them to leave the area quickly, as if something unseen were pressing down on them. Skeptics often try to explain these experiences as tricks of light, echoes, or the eerie calls of swamp animals mistaken for something supernatural. But those who have encountered the swamp's strangeness firsthand remain convinced there is more to it than science can explain. They describe the Okefenokee not just as a wilderness, but as a place alive with memory, haunted by centuries of death, mystery, and legend. The Croatan National Forest in North Carolina is a vast and shadowed wilderness, stretching over hundreds of square miles of pine, swamp, and tangled undergrowth. By day, it is a landscape of quiet beauty, where sunlight filters through the trees and the cries of birds echo across hidden streams. Yet beneath this serene surface lies a chilling reputation, one entwined with one of America's oldest and most enduring mysteries: the disappearance of the lost colony of Roanoke. In the late 1500s, English settlers attempted to establish a permanent foothold on Roanoke Island. Supplies ran low, leadership faltered, and when Governor John White sailed back to England for assistance, he returned to find the colony abandoned. No bodies were discovered, no signs of violence or struggle remained, and the only clue was the word Croatoan carved into a post. While historians have debated the fate of the settlers for centuries, locals maintain that the forest that bears the same name is still haunted by their spirits. Those who venture into Croatan at night often describe an oppressive stillness, a silence that seems heavier than the natural quiet of the wilderness. Hikers report feeling as though unseen eyes are tracking their movements, shadows shifting at the periphery of their vision. Some speak of hearing faint whispers carried on the wind, words that are unintelligible at first, yet occasionally coalesce into the eerie syllable Croatoan. The voices are not threatening in tone, but there is a persistent sense of unease, as if the forest itself is attempting to communicate a warning or perhaps a lament. Many claim to have seen figures moving through the trespail, indistinct shapes that vanish the moment one focuses on them. Some appear to be dressed in colonial-era clothing, while others seem to drift along without form, like mists given shape. Campers often describe sudden chills, even in warm weather, and animals behaving strangely, fleeing areas where no predator is visible. It is as though the forest has retained the memory of tragedy, an imprint left by those who vanished centuries ago. One of the more unsettling accounts comes from a group of hikers exploring the swamps near the Neuse River. As night fell, they noticed a pale figure standing at the edge of the water, unmoving. Thinking it might be a fellow camper, they approached, but as they drew near, the figure dissipated into the mist. Moments later, a whisper carried through the trees, so clear it sent shivers down their spines. Croatoan terrified, the group hurried back to their vehicles, only to glance back and see more shadows moving in the distance, always just beyond the tree line. The forest also seems to play tricks on perception. Trails loop inexplicably, landmarks appear where they should not, and travelers sometimes find themselves retracing steps despite walking in a straight line. Some theorists suggest that these phenomena are natural caused by dense vegetation, fog, and uneven terrain, but the consistency of reports over decades has made the Croatan a place of fascination and dread alike. Locals warn that the forest is not a place to enter alone, especially after dark. Beyond the modern encounters, folklore adds layers of fear to the Croatan. Tales speak of settlers wandering endlessly, unable to return to the world of the living, their voices caught in the trees. Campfires are sometimes reported to flare unexpectedly, only to vanish, leaving behind no ash or embers. Others tell of the sound of distant footsteps in the mud, appearing and disappearing, as if the forest itself is walking alongside those who dare traverse its paths. Despite its haunted reputation, the Croatan National Forest continues to attract explorers, paranormal investigators, and adventurers drawn by both its natural beauty and its historical mystery. Those who visit often leave with stories that defy explanation, describing the combination of wonder and dread that seems to saturate the woods. To many, the forest is a reminder that history does not always rest quietly beneath the soil. Instead, it lingers in the trees, in the mist, and in the soft whispers that float through the night. The Croatan National Forest is more than just a wilderness. It is a living monument to one of the greatest mysteries of early America. The word Croton, carved in desperation centuries ago, remains a haunting echo, carried by the wind through the dense pines and murky swamps. Whether the spirits of the lost colony truly wander these woods, or whether the forest simply amplifies the imagination, one truth endures. Those who step into the Croatan at night do so at the edge of history and legend, where the past still breathes and the unknown waits just beyond sight. The Angeles National Forest, stretching across the rugged mountains just north of Los Angeles, is a place of contrasts. By day, it offers sweeping views of sunlit ridges, winding trails, and quiet streams that cut through pine-draped canyons. Hikers, mountain bikers, and campers are drawn to its beauty, often unaware that the forest holds a far darker side. When the sun dips behind the peaks and shadows stretch long across the landscape, the forest seems to shift, taking on an eerie stillness that has given rise to legends, ghost stories, and unexplained phenomena that have persisted for generations. One of the most frequently reported mysteries in the Angeles is the appearance of ghostly hikers. Travelers describe walking along trails at dusk, only to notice a solitary figure following them at a distance. At first, it seems like a fellow hiker, but as the moments pass, the figure does not move like a living person. Sometimes it seems to glide over rocks and roots with impossible ease. Other times, when the witness stops or turns to confront it, the figure disappears entirely, leaving no footprints or disturbance in the soil. Locals warn that these are not mere hallucinations, but spirits of those who perished in the forest over the years, wandering endlessly and sometimes reaching out to the living, whether intentionally or not. The forest's history of aviation accidents adds another layer of unease. Reports of phantom planes streaking across the sky or crashing into the hills are common among residents and hikers alike. Witnesses often describe the sound of engines roaring, followed by a deafening crash and a flash of fire, only to find no wreckage, no scorch marks, and no evidence of any crash. Some believe these are echoes of real tragedies, residual energy trapped in the mountains, replaying moments of terror over and over. Others claim they are warnings, or perhaps the forest's way of keeping intruders wary of the dangers hidden in the terrain. Even experienced park rangers and search and rescue personnel have reported strange occurrences. One officer recounted patrolling a remote canyon at night when he saw flickering lights moving among the trees. Thinking they were lost hikers, he approached, only to find the forest empty. The lights would flare and vanish, shifting between ridges as if alive, leaving an oppressive sense of being watched. The officer admitted that, despite years of service, nothing he had seen in the Angeles compared to the feeling that the forest itself is aware of its visitors. The landscape amplifies these mysteries. Trails wind unpredictably through steep canyons and dense underbrush, creating a maze that can disorient even the most experienced hikers. Fog often rolls in suddenly, obscuring familiar landmarks and adding a ghostly haze to the ridges. Travelers report hearing footsteps echoing across trails, voices calling from the darkness, and whispers that vanish the moment they strain to understand them. Even the wildlife behaves strangely at times, with animals fleeing areas for no apparent reason, as though reacting to unseen presences. Many visitors have recounted encounters with shadows that move independently of the forest, figures that appear at the edge of vision and vanish when looked at directly. Campers have woken to the sound of someone walking around their tents, only to find the area deserted. Others have reported sudden chills, a cold that seeps into the bones, accompanied by an oppressive sense of being observed. It is this combination of visual anomalies, inexplicable sounds, and the ever-present feeling of being watched that gives the Angeles National Forest its unsettling reputation. The forest is also peppered with old homesteads, abandoned cabins, and remnants of early settlements, each adding their own echoes to the mountains. Some stories speak of people glimpsing figures in old-fashioned clothing among the ruins, moving silently, performing tasks long forgotten. Campfires flare without fuel, shadows twist unnaturally, and the smell of wood smoke sometimes drifts through areas with no sign of human presence. It is as if the forest is layered with history, tragedy, and memory, all coexisting with the living in an uneasy balance. Despite these legends, the Angeles National Forest continues to attract adventurers, photographers, and nature enthusiasts. By day, it is undeniably beautiful, a sanctuary of wilderness in the midst of Southern California. But as night falls, the forest transforms. The trails that were so inviting in sunlight become corridors of mystery and apprehension. Every rustle of leaves, every distant crack of a branch, every shifting shadow can be a reminder that in these mountains, the boundary between the living and the unseen is thin. Those who venture too far after dark often return with tales of ghostly hikers, phantom planes, and an eerie awareness that the forest is watching and that its secrets are not meant to be disturbed. The Kaibab National Forest in northern Arizona stretches across a rugged and breathtaking expanse that borders the Grand Canyon itself. While many come here for its beauty, its pine-draped plateaus, and its quiet seclusion, the forest also holds an aura of unease that lingers with anyone who enters too deeply. Beneath the towering ponderosa pines and the endless spread of canyon shadows, stories circulate of strange lights weaving between the trees, of whispers carried on the wind, and of figures moving just beyond the reach of lantern light. For centuries, this wilderness has been both a place of wonder and a place of dread, where legends of the supernatural seem to take root in the soil itself. One of the most frequently reported phenomena in the Kaibab National Forest is the appearance of mysterious lights. Campers tell of glowing orbs rising from the canyon rim, floating effortlessly between the trees, only to vanish when pursued. Sometimes they shimmer in the distance, like lanterns being carried by unseen hands, luring travelers off the trails. Hikers who follow them often find themselves disoriented, wandering into unfamiliar clearings with no memory of how they arrived. Some have likened the lights to ghostly guides, while others fear they are meant to lead intruders into danger. A trick played by forces that do not wish the land to be disturbed. The lights are not the only unsettling presence. Strange whispers are said to flow through the forest at night, never loud enough to make out words, but always near enough to keep a traveler's nerves on edge. Hunters describe the sensation of being surrounded, as though a group of unseen figures moves in the trees around them, just beyond sight. When flashlights or lanterns sweep across the forest floor, nothing is there, only still trees and shifting shadows, yet the feeling of being watched persists, as if the forest itself were alive and aware of every step taken within it. Perhaps the most terrifying accounts involve figures that move silently among the trees. They are often described as tall, lean silhouettes, darker than the night itself, keeping pace with those who walk the trails. Some witnesses swear the figures vanish when approached, dissolving into the air like smoke. Others claim they see them crouching among the rocks or standing still at the edges of campsites, motionless, as though studying those who sleep. There are even reports of hikers turning around suddenly, only to catch a glimpse of something following them, before it darts into the shadows. These beings leave no tracks, No sign of their presence, except for the chill that settles in the bones of those who encounter them. For many, these experiences are tied to older legends. The Navajo, whose ancestral lands stretch across much of the region, speak of skinwalkers, malevolent beings who can take the shape of animals or appear as humans with unnatural traits. To speak too openly of them is said to invite their attention, but whispers persist that the Kaibab Forest is one of the places where their presence is strongest. Some locals refuse to camp alone in certain areas, fearing that the cries of animals at night may not belong to animals at all. Coyotes seen standing on two legs, owls that watch with human-like eyes, or the sound of hoofbeats echoing where no horses roam all, have been tied to skinwalker lore. Travelers have recounted chilling encounters that seem to support these fears. One man, camping alone near the northern edge of the forest, woke to the sound of footsteps circling his tent. Thinking it was an animal, he called out and shone his flashlight, only to see a figure standing just beyond the light's edge. It looked human, but its limbs were too long, its stance unnatural. When he shouted again, the figure bolted, but instead of running like a man, it moved on all fours, vanishing into the trees with a speed no animal should have. The man packed his things and left before sunrise, vowing never to return. Another tale tells of a family hiking near the canyon rim at dusk. As they prepared to head back, they noticed a man walking parallel to them in the woods. He kept his distance, but never broke stride, appearing again and again between the trees. When they stopped, he stopped. When they hurried, he matched their pace. Finally, they turned onto the main trail, only to find him gone. That night, while resting in their cabin, they heard scratching at the windows and the sound of something heavy moving across the roof. The family refused to sleep there again, convinced they had been followed home by something that had worn a man's shape. Even without these encounters, the Kaibab National Forest exudes an atmosphere that unsettles those who linger after dark. The silence of the high plateaus is oppressive, broken only by the rustle of wind in the trees or the distant calls of unseen animals. The shadows are long, and the forest seems endless, a maze of identical trees where time feels suspended. Some say this is why the supernatural thrives here, in a place where nature already overwhelms the senses. The line between the real and the unreal becomes dangerously thin. Despite its beauty, many avoid camping in the deeper parts of the Kaibab. Park rangers have collected stories from visitors who left in the middle of the night, shaken by things they could not explain. Even seasoned hunters and hikers admit to feeling uneasy, as though the forest tests anyone who dares to cross it. Whether the source of its strangeness lies in ancient legends, uncharted natural phenomena, or something beyond human comprehension, the Kaibab National Forest remains one of the most mysterious and haunted places in Arizona. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park, straddling Tennessee and North Carolina, is a place where beauty and mystery walk hand in hand. By day, the Smokies are breathtaking, land of endless ridges, blue mist rolling off the peaks, and ancient forests alive with birdsong. But, as the sun dips below the mountains and night drapes its veil over the park, the atmosphere transforms. The same mists that give the Smokies their name take on a ghostly shimmer, curling through the trees like restless spirits. Beneath the beauty lies a chilling reputation, for these mountains are steeped in ghost stories, legends, and encounters that blur the line between the natural and the supernatural. Generations of visitors, settlers, and indigenous peoples have told tales of the Smokies' haunted legacy. Long before the establishment of the national park, the Cherokee people spoke of spirits dwelling in the mountains. Among the most infamous is Spiffingers, a terrifying figure with a body of stone and a razor-sharp finger. She used to slice out the livers of her victims. Cloaked in mist, she was said to take the form of loved ones, to lure unsuspecting people close, only to strike when they least expected it. Some hikers claim that Spearfinger still wanders the ridges, her shadow seen moving in fog banks that roll silently through the valleys. A few even say they've heard a voice calling their name in the mist, leading them away from trails and into the darkness, as though something ancient still hunts in the mountains. But Spearfinger is not the only presence said to haunt the Smokies. The mountains were a stage for the tragedies of the Civil War. When soldiers from both Union and Confederate sides clashed in this rugged wilderness, many men perished in skirmishes and ambushes, their bodies often left unburied in remote hollows. Visitors camping near old battle sites have reported the sound of phantom gunfire echoing through the night, even when the air is still. Some describe hearing the heavy march of ghostly soldiers moving through the woods, the metallic clink of bayonets, and the shuffle of boots on fallen leaves. Campers have awoken to the sound of distant drums, only to find no one there. There are even stories of shadowy figures dressed in ragged uniforms appearing on trails at dusk, their hollow eyes fixed on those who cross their path, as though the soldiers are still patrolling a war that ended long ago. Then there are the ghost lights, mysterious glowing orbs that have been seen floating in the valleys and ridges of the smoke. These lights are said to flicker like lanterns carried by invisible hands, bobbing through the trees or skimming just above the ground. Some believe they are the souls of lost travelers, still searching for a way home. Others connect them to the spirits of the Cherokee, guardians watching over the land. The most unsettling accounts describe lights that approach hikers directly, hovering near them before vanishing into the darkness without a trace. Witnesses often speak of feeling a sudden chill or an overwhelming sense of being watched in the moments before or after the lights appear. One particularly eerie legend tells of Norton Creek, where the spirit of a grieving mother is said to linger. According to the tale, her children drowned in the creek, and unable to move on, her ghost still searches the water's edge. Campers nearby have reported hearing soft cries and the sound of footsteps pacing along the bank at night. Some even claim to have seen a woman in a long dress drifting through the trees, her face obscured by shadows. Those who approach the creek after dark sometimes describe the feeling of invisible hands tugging at their clothing, as though urging them away from the water. Other spirits of the Smokies are tied to old homesteads and cabins that remain scattered throughout the park. At the historic Roaring Fork area, visitors have encountered apparitions of pioneers who once lived and died in the isolated mountains. Ghostly children are said to dart between the ruins of old homes, their laughter echoing faintly on the wind. At times, the smell of wood smoke or cooking drifts through the air, even when no fire is burning nearby, as though echoes of the past still linger in the mountain hollows. One of the most unsettling modern reports involves hikers who wander off trail and find themselves lost, only to encounter figures that seem all too real at first glance. Some describe meeting men or women on the path who speak in strange, old-fashioned voices, offering guidance or warning. But when hikers look back just moments later, the strangers are gone, leaving no footprints behind. Locals whisper that these may be the ghosts of early settlers, still walking the trails they once carved through the wilderness. The Smokies are a place of deep silence at night, the kind that makes even the smallest sounds seem amplified. It's in that silence that many visitors claim to hear whisper soft, unintelligible voices carried on the wind, weaving through the trees. Some say the word Spearfinger has been heard distinctly, spoken in a tone both mocking and menacing. Others report hearing their own name whispered back at them, as though the forest itself is alive and aware of their presence. Despite or perhaps because of these chilling stories, the Great Smoky Mountains remain one of the most visited national parks in the United States. By day, the beauty is undeniable, drawing millions of hikers, campers, and sightseers. But by night, the shadows lengthen, the fog thickens, and the past seems to press close. Whether it is the restless soldiers of the Civil War, the vengeful figure of Spearfinger, or the countless spirits tied to the land, the Smokies carry an atmosphere that unsettles even the bravest explorers. It is a place where history and legend merge, where natural beauty conceals supernatural mystery, and where every whisper of wind through the trees might not belong to the living at all. Alaska is a land of extreme towering mountains, endless forests, and a winter darkness that stretches for months. Its beauty is breathtaking. But beneath the pristine snow and towering evergreens lies a wilderness that has claimed countless lives and inspired stories of the supernatural. Among the most chilling of these tales are those of Alaska's haunted forests. From the Kenai Peninsula to the remote stretches of the interior. Here, the line between natural danger and unexplained phenomena often blurs, leaving travelers, hunters, and adventurers with stories that chill even the most seasoned outdoorsmen. The region, often referred to as the Alaska Triangle, stretches across the southern coast, encompassing the Kenai Peninsula, Anchorage, and the areas north toward Denali. Like the infamous Bermuda Triangle, it has earned a reputation for mysterious disappearances. Hikers and snowmobilers vanish without a trace, sometimes leaving behind abandoned gear or overturned snow machines, yet no bodies are ever recovered. Locals whisper that the forests themselves are alive in ways outsiders cannot understand, that the trees and ice conceal forces that watch, stalk, and claim those who wander too far. One of the most pervasive legends involves ghostly figures glimpsed along trails. Travelers describe sudden movements at the edge of their vision, tall silhouettes that vanish when looked at directly, or shadowy forms gliding silently across snowfields, as though they are spirits of miners, trappers, or early settlers who perished in the wilderness. Hikers report a chill in the air that descends suddenly, a freezing wind that cuts through layers of clothing, as if the forest itself resents intruders. Those who linger too long often feel an oppressive weight, a sense of being watched from every direction, until they flee in panic. The Kenai Peninsula alone has inspired countless stories of unexplained occurrences. Snow-capped ridges and frozen lakes are littered with accounts of hikers hearing footsteps following them through dense forest, even when they are alone. Some have turned to confront what they think may be another human traveler, only to find nothing but untouched snow and the whisper of wind in the trees. Others have reported hearing voices calling their names, sometimes in distant echoes, sometimes close enough to make their skin crawl. Many leave the forest shaken, unable to explain why a place so beautiful could feel so menacing. The disappearance stories are particularly chilling. In some cases, entire groups have vanished during hunting trips or backcountry treks. Search teams often comb the area for days, following tracks that abruptly end in open wilderness. Snowdrifts, frozen rivers, and dense trees obscure every trace. And yet, there is a growing sense that these vanishings are not entirely natural. Locals tell tales of travelers who entered the forest confident and unafraid, only to return hours or days later in a state of terror, their clothing torn, their eyes wide with fear, unable to articulate what they had seen. Some never return at all, swallowed by the wilderness as though the land itself had claimed them. In addition to missing persons, hunters and campers often report intense feelings of dread and unease. Even those experienced in the harsh Alaskan winter speak of the sensation of being watched by something unseen, fleeing areas without reason, as if responding to a threat invisible to humans. Travelers report that compasses and GPS devices can fail, and that sudden fog can appear in the middle of clear trails, disorienting even the most skilled navigators. Some suggest that these phenomena are the forest's way of protecting secrets older than recorded history. Beyond Kenai, the remote forests near Denali and the interior of Alaska have their own sinister reputation. Hunters often speak of glowing lights in the distance that rise and fall like lanterns carried by invisible hands. Some follow these lights, hoping they are other humans or guiding markers, only to find themselves deep in frozen woods, miles from any trailhead. Others describe seeing figures standing among the trees that seem to move silently on their own. Their presence felt more than seen, and leaving an uncanny impression that persists long after the encounter. Even indigenous lore points to the strangeness of these forests. Native Alaskan legends tell of spirits that dwell in the land, guardians and tricksters alike, some seeking to warn travelers of danger, others drawn to those who stray too far. Stories speak of beings that can change shape, vanish into thin air, and manipulate the landscape to confuse outsiders. While skeptics dismiss these tales as myth, the consistency of modern reports spanning decades and dozens of disappearances suggests that something is at play in these forests that defies easy explanation. Despite the dangers and the legends, Adventurers continue to explore Alaska's haunted forests. Snowmobilers, hikers, and photographers are drawn to the dramatic landscapes, the solitude, and the thrill of encountering the unknown. Yet even the bravest who enter these woods carry a sense of caution, understanding that in this wilderness, beauty and terror coexist. It is a place where the stillness of the forest can be deceiving, where the crunch of snow underfoot might be the only warning of an unseen presence, and where the night can transform familiar trails into corridors of dread. The forests of Alaska, from Kenai to the far reaches of the interior, remain some of the most mysterious and haunted wildlands in America. Whether the stories of ghostly figures, whispers, and vanishings are rooted in legend, natural phenomena, or something beyond human understanding, one truth persists. The land demands respect, and those who enter must do so with caution. Many have been drawn to its beauty, but the haunted forests of Alaska remind us that in the wilderness, the line between life and the unknown is never far away. And so, my friend, we have walked through 25 of America's most haunted forests together. Places where shadows stretch long, where voices whisper from the trees, and where sometimes the forest itself feels alive. But remember, forests are patient. They keep their secrets. If you ever wander into these woods, do not go alone. Bring light, bring company, and maybe, just maybe, something will still be watching from the shadows. Thank you for joining me on this chilling journey tonight. If you enjoyed walking these haunted paths, don't forget to leave a lantern glowing for me by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with a friend who dares to listen. Until next time, keep your eyes on the trees and your footsteps light. Good night, dear traveler.